Okay, let's try to get this going quick. Alright, that's working. Pickups also working. To go.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers, Game Director on Path of Exile 2. Welcome to GGG Live. Well, it's been a little over 3 months since we launched Early Access, so it's about time for our first major content update. Today, we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of Path of Exile 2, Dawn of the Hunt, which launches on April 4th. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below in order to claim your Executioner's Guillotine finisher effect. Now in today's stream, we're going to take you on a deep dive into the new Dawn of the Hunt
Finisher
update.
effect? Okay.
We'll cover a new class, 5 new Ascendancy classes, and huge expansions on character systems like unique items and support chains. After that, it's on to the in-game improvements.
New class, new
Ascendancies, a bunch of new encounters, and lots of other content.
So probably just the
Huntress.
Huntress.
Today with a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile 2's game directors.
Actually, now that I think about it, wait, is the Druid part of the Huntress?
Now we have a lot to cover today, so let's get started with a trailer for Path of Exile 2.
The Druid isn't just a class itself. Would it be an Ascendancy?
We as Mary are guided by the Spirit.
Actually, now that I think about it,
It provides prayer.
wouldn't the Druid be
shelter,
the Ascendancy?
even love.
I'm just saying. Huntress is the class, Druid's the
But for
Ascendancy.
me,
Oh my goodness.
One day, all that would
That's
change.
funny. I think that's been a mistake everybody's been making this entire time.
The Spirit, it showed me something. Something forbidden. And to defend all I loved, I used it. I lost everything that day. But fate weren't finished with me yet. I'll right the wrongs I've done. I'll do what I must, no matter the cost. I will hear the Spirit once more.
$25 new skills, okay. All spear stuff, I assume.
Don't make me kill you. I shall bathe in your blood.
+100 new uniques, new essential, okay. New in-game mechanics. See, I hope they just lean into the bossing stuff a lot more. I saw a lot of those that look like bosses, and I just want, give me the boss stuff. That's something that I'm gonna have to go back and look at it again just to see every little thing they and much more, right? Let's see what we got.
See, In Dawn of the Hunt,
Okay,
we're
that was
introducing
fair
the first new class since early access to POE 2, the Huntress. The Huntress is a spear-wielding Asmeri warrior. Born into a society with strict traditions, she was exiled from her homeland after using the power of a skill gem to defend her village. As a dexterous spear user, she specializes in both melee and ranged combat, dashing into and out of battle. Spears have extended range and a short dash, but unlike other melee weapons, you can also throw them. In order to make a hybrid ranged and melee character work, we had to do a lot of thinking about ways to make it fun to both enter and exit melee range. The first skill you will get as a Huntress is Whirling Slash. As well as striking in a circle around you, this skill creates a whirlwind that blinds your enemies. Leaving the whirlwind will make it explode.
Oh.
The more Whirling Slash is used, the bigger the whirlwind, and the bigger the explosion.
Okay, that's kind of cool. It's like Blade
Once you're out
Storm
of there, you'll
with
want to
extra
follow up
steps.
with something ranged. Whip your spear around to shoot twisters towards your foes. These twisters bounce off walls and can hit enemies multiple times.
Okay,
You
that's
can
pretty
also
cool.
throw twisters inside a whirlwind to shoot out extra tornadoes that do way more damage. In her offhand, the Huntress will usually want to hold a buckler, which allows you to do a new skill, Parry. While holding
Wait.
down Parry, your character will counterattack any incoming attack from monsters near you.
Wait, no way,
In addition,
dude.
the monsters will take extra
We
attack
have
damage from a
parrying?
follow-up strike. Some specific skills are designed
Okay,
to be used
that's
after
kinda
a parry
crazy.
and have extra effects. Disengage is a skill that does a quick jump back, damaging enemies in front of you, and it can be used to interrupt other actions,
What-
like dodge roll. If you
What's
use
our
it against
limits
a
on
parried enemy,
parrying?
though,
That's
it
all I'm
causes an
saying.
explosion and gives you a frenzy charge. Just be careful.
That could be
If you
insane.
parry too much, you're going to get stunned and possibly killed. You can combine this combo with Whirling
Kind of like the
Slash.
block gauge, okay.
Slash,
But it's a parry gauge.
disengage, and you'll get an explosion from the disengage and the Whirling Slash. The Huntress also has a variety of elemental spear throw attacks. You could use Lightning Spear to bounce lightning between your foes. Or you could throw explosive
Not
spears into
bad.
the ground. These spears take a while to detonate, but when they do, they'll incinerate anyone caught in the blast. All spear throws on the Huntress can also be empowered by frenzy charges. For example, explosive spears will do an even larger explosion and leave fire on the ground. And these empowered versions can activate even more combos. Using Whirling Slash over ground fire will suck it into the whirlwind, adding fire to the explosion. Using twisters inside a fire whirlwind will shoot out fire tornadoes as well. And you can do similar combos with ice and lightning too. Now, a key aspect of hunting is exhausting your foes by causing blood loss. This skill is Rake, which dashes towards your target and unleashes a deadly slash, opening up wounds on your enemies. Follow up with Disengage and watch them bleed out as they run towards you. On the health bar of monsters, you can see how much blood loss the
I'm
enemy has experienced.
Curious to see
and the
about
Huntress has skills
how
to take
effective
advantage of
bleed.
this.
I really
For
want bleed to be a
example,
thing.
using Blood Hunt will thrust forward and cause a bloody explosion. The more blood loss, the bigger the explosion. If you want to cause bigger bleeds, try out Rapid
His
Assault.
bleed is really
The
weak
final
right now.
hit of this multi-hit combo will stick a spear into your enemy for a big bleed. Now, Explosive Spear and Rapid Assault both result in leaving spears behind, either in the ground or in enemies. But there are other skills that leave spears around too, like Storm Lance, that leaves an electrical spear that arcs towards enemies. But what can you do with all these spears? Detonate them, of course. Thunderous Leap will allow you to jump onto and explode any spears either in the ground or in your enemies. Now, as well as hunting animals, the Huntress also has the ability to work with them. While fighting any beast, you have the ability to tame it and use it as a companion.
Wait, what?
You can only have one companion at a time, but it will keep the mods that were on it. Try to find a rare beast with good mods to take full advantage of your ability to tame them.
Wait a minute, you can actually have
Now, this
the
is just
rare
the beginning of
mods
the
on like a
Huntress.
Spectre
We've really
kind of
tried to make
deal?
the hybrid ranged and
That's
melee
crazy.
gameplay work for this class by having a huge amount of synergy between ranged and melee options. There are 22 new skills available for the Huntress. By endgame, you'll be slinging hundreds of insanely powerful spears, sending forth
You don't
spirit
need nets
animals
for
and
that.
summoning
You
the might of
just
Solaris
have the
from the
beast.
sky.
That's crazy.
But we still haven't talked about ascendancy classes yet. What can the Huntress ascend into?
Druid, right?
Well, the first
Druid?
ascension class you could choose is the Ritualist. The
Ritualist,
Ritualist
okay.
has embraced the darker side of his merry traditions by harnessing the power of animal sacrifice and plague. The Corrupted Life Force skill causes all enemies around you to grow volatile blood boils on their skin. When those enemies are slain, the boils will burst, spreading corrupted blood to all enemies around them. The Ritualist
Maybe to
also
bleed
excels
stuff?
in taking advantage
Wait,
of magical
what?
trinkets.
Plus
The
one ring.
unfurled finger skill allows you to equip an additional ring on a finger
Okay, with the
around your
belt
neck.
that already exists, that is
Taking
like the
Mystic
most
Attunement
OP
increases the
thing.
bonuses of all the rings
What?
and amulets you have equipped.
What in the world is that, dude?
Now this
What
is
in
one
the
of my
world is that?
favorites.
Pretty
As the
swish
Whisper's Ask,
indeed.
it grants you a new
Oh my
skill,
gosh, yeah,
Ritual
like,
Sacrifice.
oh no.
Use the skill on the
Army
corpses of
with the
slain
T1,
rare
let's
monsters
go.
to absorb the power in their blood, to give you one of their modifiers for a short time.
So you get
Specialize further into Ritualistic Sacrifice with As the
inspired
Whispers
learning,
Demand,
okay.
which allows you to perform that skill on yourself instead of a corpse. Cut your own hand, sacrificing some of your own blood to empower yourself. The Amazon Ascension is for those looking to hunt more than just beasts.
Oh my gosh, we got
Trained
the
as an elite
Amazon
guard to the
before.
most
We
important
got
as
the
merry
Amazon
elders. The
before
Amazon will use more
Diablo, dude.
traditional fighting techniques mastered to perfection. The Predatory
Oh,
Instinct skill
let's
will
go.
cause you to reveal weaknesses in the defenses of rare and unique enemies, causing you to deal more damage. You can see those weak spots represented on their life bars.
Okay, that's just a little weird, but cool.
While using Elemental Infusion, any charges you consume will infuse your weapon with elemental power, causing any projectile attacks to explode on impact. The Critical Strike skill is as simple as it sounds. It takes your excess accuracy and gives it to you as critical strike chance.
Okay.
Additionally, you have skills like Mystic Harvest, which allows your elemental damage to leech life, and as Mary Brew, to be able to use either flask to restore both life and mana. So those are the two new ascendancies for the Huntress.
So we get to
But those are not the
overcap
only
or
ascendancies in Dawn of
accuracy.
the Hunt.
That's kind of cool.
We've added a new ascension class for 3 of the other existing classes
Okay,
too.
so we didn't actually get the druid.
First up,
Maybe the
for our
druid is
warriors
a
out
class.
there,
Maybe
we
I'm
have the
crazy.
Smith of Katava.
I was like, maybe it's his ascendancy.
The
but-
warrior is a blacksmith in origin, taught by his father Renly. With this ascension, you can take your smithing skills
But that's
to new
just two.
heights by embracing power from the
But
insatiable
I thought the
one
druid
himself,
was the Huntress
Katava.
ascendancy. That would make sense.
Smiths of Katava are master blacksmiths.
Wait, what
and
in the
have
world is
ability
that?
to forge their weapon, quite literally. Using the Against the Anvil notable skill, you can enhance your weapon with fiery destruction before any
Huh?
battle. After doing so,
What is
your
that at the
attacks will release
bottom?
explosions on hit for maximum devastation.
Is my face covering this up? Not
You
completely.
can
It
also
keeps
use
going.
the power of
It's literally
Kitava
that
to
one
summon
dot,
an
and
animated
then it
copy
just
of
keeps
your
going.
weapon to fight alongside you. A great blacksmith can do more than just forging their weapon, though.
Okay,
Their
that
armor
actually
can be
looks
enhanced
cool.
too.
I love
Now,
the
you might think
class
this
and
ascendancy class tree looks a
class
little
epoch.
abnormal, and you're right. There's a lot of notable skills all disconnected at the bottom there. By taking
Yeah.
this point here, which is free to assign, your character is unable to equip body armors with mods of any kind. So your body armor must be normal. Sounds like a downside, right?
It's
Except
Jimma.
now in true blacksmith fashion, you get to craft your own body armor by taking those disconnected
Wait,
notables with your
what?
points. If you want your body armor to grant life, take this notable. If you want resistances, take this one. There's so many choices. Think of it like you're crafting your own body armor, just in a more literal sense. Now, let's move on to those who prefer the reassuring feel of a crossbow in their hands, the mercenary. Alongside the existing
And right now
ascension
you can't
classes, the
respec.
Gemmling Legionnaire and the Witch Hunter,
Honestly,
you can
I
now
would be
play
like,
as the
take that,
Tactician.
play, and then
The
respec
Tactician
to
is a
something
former
else.
Blackguard elite. Free from the duties of a Blackguard, he is able to use his training to decimate the monsters of Ray class
I don't know how I
and
feel
earn
about
a
that.
healthy income doing so.
Other
This
than that,
training
it's
comes
just
in the form of
stats.
various skills like suppressing fire, which causes
Suppressing
all projectiles
fire!
to
Let's
pin
go.
enemies. When combined with the right where we want them notable, your pin not only stops your enemies from moving, but stops them from performing actions too. Similar to
Okay.
freeze. With a soldier's training, the tactician also works well cooperatively. Using
we're
the
doing
whoever
banners.
pays best notable, you can place multiple banners at once. The Watch How We Do It skill gives a portion of your weapon's damage to your allies as well. But if that isn't enough, you can also command your army of off-screen archers to unleash hell and carpet an entire area with
Supporting
arrows.
fire? Okay.
Finally, witch players will be able to join their legions by
you
becoming
get a
undead
summon?
themselves.
Did I miss
In
that?
Dawn of the Hunt, we're introducing the Lich Ascension class.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
The
I
Lich is
might
a
be
master of
I might
chaos
be
and
starting it.
curses and could sacrifice her life to enhance her
Oh
energy
my
shield.
goodness. Ami right
The
here. This is
crystalline
yours.
phylactery skill
This
allows
is
you to
it.
nominate a jewel in which to contain part
Chaos
of your
damage?
soul, massively increasing its
Straight
power.
up.
There's just one downside to splitting your soul this way, though.
Whoa, what
If
the?
you have no energy shield, your mana costs will shoot up. The Necromantic Conduit skill causes you
Okay.
and allies in your presence to have unholy might, granting extra damage.
Okay,
as
that's
chaos
insane.
damage.
What?
Rupture the Soul makes enemies you curse explode with chaos damage when slain. Dominion over Flesh allows you to apply an additional
Yeah, that's
curse.
pretty good. Come on, give me something good for the AoE. Maybe I was wrong.
It's safe to say you'll be the true master of the occult by choosing the Lich class. So Dawn of
maybe
the
not.
Hunt has the Huntress and 5 new Ascension classes, but it doesn't end there. Let's take a look at some of the new skills we've added. Now you may remember we've previously talked about the Raised Spectre skill. It's finally complete, and it will be made available in the upcoming expansion.
No way, dude.
It can be found in the occult skills on the skill gem crafting panel. Raised Spectre is a skill that allows you to trap the soul of almost any monster in the game,
Wait, that's how you do this now? Oh, dude.
which you can then summon in the skill panel.
Okay, that's crazy.
Spectres cost spirit and will revive automatically if they die, but the spirit cost varies
Dude, with
based
that
on the
new
power of the
shield,
monster.
that's insane.
You could
That's
summon
insane
an
with
army
the
of
new
weaker
shield.
monsters,
That's insane.
or a few of the more powerful monsters. You can combine them with your existing skeleton minions, or summon exclusively specters.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna be a
It's all up to
minion
you
build
and how you want
again?
to customize your army of the undead. Given that there are hundreds upon hundreds of monster variants in Path of Exile 2, it's safe to say you'll be experimenting with this one for a while.
It's either
We look
damage
forward to
over
seeing which
time,
monsters
minion
serve you
build,
best.
or just Huntress just for the sake
Now
of
let's move on to our
Huntress.
next skill. Since we've been talking about summoning undead so much, let's have a change of pace and summon something a little more alive.
Chocobo?
In Dawn of the Hunt, we're adding the Summon Rower skill.
Yeah, we got the Chocobo. Let's
Summon
go.
your friendly rower to aid you in combat as a minion. You can also mount your rower in combat at any time, allowing you to move at full speed even while shooting arrows or throwing spears. Be wary though, if you take too much damage while riding your mount, you can be knocked off and get overwhelmed. It's worth keeping an eye on your stagger bar, as falling off the mount can mean almost certain death. On the topic of new ways to enhance your character,
so you can be
let's
stunned
talk about
off of it.
support gems. Support gems are used to modify your skill gems in meaningful and interesting ways. Currently, we feel that a lot of builds have insufficient options here. To alleviate this, we're adding over 100 new support gems. Hema crystals
Whoa,
will enable
did
a
that
new kind
just-
of
what?
bleed build, turning the damage over time you would have done into explosive vile crystals. Alignment is a support gem for
I don't know
bow
about them.
attacks, which can reward skilled players with good positional skills. Caltrops will allow you to litter the battlefield with hazards, slowing your foes as you fling spears through their ranks. But there's plenty more for every playstyle, such as Enormity,
Wait. Oh my goodness.
Unsteady Tempo, Profanity,
Corpse to the meter, chaos damage on consuming a corpse. Okay.
Retaliate,
40% more attack damage scaling up to a stun bar. Okay. As your stun bar increases.
Syzygy.
Oh,
Yep, that's a
that's
real
for
word.
blocking.
And many
Okay.
more. Now we've talked about a new class, new ascendancy classes, new skills, and new support gems. But let's not forget about the core of a true action RPG, the items.
Oh.
To start
go.
with, let's talk about uniques. We're adding over 100 new unique items.
I recognize
This
some
time,
of
we've
those.
made sure to add uniques with a focus on
There's
mid
rear
and in-game
guard.
tiers to make sure there are more exciting items
the-
to find for higher level characters.
thing that you hit
Let's look
yourself.
at some examples. Embrace your inner devil with Chernobog's Pillar. It grants you a large amount of fire damage based on your block chance.
Huh.
The Coming Calamity allows you to become a true master of the
Hey,
elements,
let's go.
granting you all 3 Elemental Herald skills without costing any spirit. At the same time, it penalizes enemy resistances.
Wow.
Waste
Okay,
Gate
that's
is
crazy.
a belt useful for builds using a single resource like Blood Magic or Archmage builds.
Actually,
With
what's the
this belt,
damage
you
on
can
that?
use 2
That would be the only
life flasks
downside.
Or 2 mana flasks. It's up to you. Now, we could go through these all day, but we'll leave most of them for you to discover.
Oh.
Suffice to say, though, we want there to be way more cool things to find.
Who knows what that crossbow
Over
is gonna
time,
do.
our goal is to add
Oh,
a unique to
tiebreaker.
every single base item type at a minimum, so that you can chance any base in the game.
Is that? Yeah,
Now,
that's the shield. That's
given
the
that we
snake
have the
shield.
Huntress, we have a set
What
of
are we gonna do
unique
with that?
spears from early game all the way through the end
How
game
does
as
that
well.
one get through?
One example is Scyther's Spear, which combines bleed and fire in a powerful way. It allows your ignites to be aggravated, dealing substantially more damage.
Wait.
We're also introducing a suite of unique bucklets
Okay, that's
with
crazy.
some interesting parry mechanics. Calgyra's Arc, for example, allows you to parry
Okay,
projectiles
I
from
kind of
any
want to do a
distance.
bleed build.
And we're also adding
I
our
think it's
first
bleed
unique
ignite
charms.
kind of thing, something like that.
Bayra's Anguish will not only
Sure.
protect you from Ignite, but will also emit a devastating fire nova whenever you do get ignited. In sum, there's just a ton of new uniques to find. We can't wait to see the weird and broken builds that come out.
And I could always do poison.
Now, we
and
also want to talk about crafting options. In each major update during early access, we'll be continuing to add and improve the options here. We have various new crafting tools that have been added as rewards to many of the different types of new content that we're adding. But for now, I just want to mention the changes to runes.
Wait, really?
Runes add commonly available mods, but since they only have one tier, flat damage mods tend to get
Did they
outclassed by
actually
in-game.
do it?
So we've changed runes to have multiple tiers, allowing you to get higher tier mods than before.
Yes,
Our plan
exactly.
is to
That
significantly
is,
expand the number of more
and-
specialized mods for crafting.
yeah, that's
going
gonna
to
be the name of the build,
Add
actually.
new content
How
over
did you
time.
know?
And the first new set of those
'Cause
comes
I
from
actually
what we're
did that
talking about
once.
next. In Dawn of the Hunt, we're adding Asmerian Wisps,
did I just-
which can be found
did I
throughout
really
both the
just-
campaign and the endgame.
I really just...
The Asmeri spirit has made itself present in Rayclast, and it appears to be trying to warn, or maybe prepare us for the coming darkness. You will first encounter a manifestation of it in the Grellwood in Act 1, where you'll meet Delwyn, an Asmeri hunter who is trying to find out what exactly is causing the spirit to behave this way. As you approach the wisp, it will flee, leading you past monsters. Any monsters it comes into contact with are infused by it, making them more powerful. Each spirit is associated with a specific revered animal within Asmeri culture. This one is
Damn.
a wisp of the Great Bear, and grants enemies extra life and stun.
Okay, that's pretty
The
well
wisp
played.
moves
That's pretty
faster
well
the
played.
closer you are, and as you move away, they slow down to wait for you. But if you
Okay.
get too far away for too long, they'll dissipate and return to the woods. As you continue to chase the wisp, it will find and possess a rare or unique monster, granting it a new powerful ability. Because this was a wisp of the Great Bear, this monster now also has increased life and stun. But on top of that, it will periodically summon a large spectral bear that
Slash
slams
bills,
with
yeah.
wild fury.
Yes, serious face.
If you're able to defeat this foe, you will be rewarded. For each monster that was infused and killed along the way, the rewards will be increased. Each wisp has its own mechanics. The Wisp of the Winter Owl is a primal wisp that causes enemies to deal extra cold damage, gain energy shield, and release wind vortices on death. When infusing a monster, they will call down large tornadoes to protect their host. The Wisp of the Wild Cat is a vivid wisp that causes affected monsters to deal more critical strikes and become more evasive. When it infuses a monster, it will summon a barrage of feline spirits that will attempt to tear you limb from limb.
I don't know how I feel
If you're
about
lucky,
these.
you may even find sacred wisps that can do some pretty crazy things to the monsters they influence. Like the Wisp of the Cunning Fox, which turns normal monsters into magics, magic monsters into rares, and rare monsters into actual bosses.
Okay, that's crazy. Suddenly just a boss? Okay,
Asmerian
that's kind of
wisps
cool.
can drop
See,
a
now
new set of
that's cool.
socketable items that allow you to craft a wide range of interesting new mods onto your items.
What?
Each one may only be used on a specific item slot.
Back to work,
As
good luck, good
mentioned,
luck.
the Asmerian
Have a good
wisps
one,
can
Ani.
be encountered throughout the game. But
You
there's
should play
also a
this.
new endgame map called the Asmeri Ranges, a mountain village
You can
where
have
the
a
Asmeri
chocobo.
once lived, now overrun with corrupt monsters. This map always has multiple Asmerian wisps in it, and familiar, yet not quite the same boss fight. Asmerian wisps can also be further modified by the endgame atlas tree as well, and by tablets. But I'm not going to be the one talking about those things. In order to cover all the new content in endgame, I'm going to hand things over to Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts,
Hey,
Game Director on
let's
Path of
go.
Exile 2. There's a ton to talk about with the endgame today, so let's dig
The
right
wisp
in.
thing, I don't know how...
Path of Exile 2's early access began with a brand new endgame, and it was clear that it needed a lot of work. After absorbing your feedback, we're ready to make some epic changes. The first thing is, we just need a lot more content. In Dawn of the Hunt, we have made sure to focus on increasing the sheer number of interesting and different encounters you will randomly stumble
see,
into
I feel like
as you
Breach
explore
just
the
doesn't
endgame. And the
belong
second
in
goal is
its
to
same
smoothen the
state.
progression through maps and reduce the amount of annoying busy work. To start with, let's talk about the new interesting stuff to find. Well, the most obvious thing to add are new maps. As well as the Asmeri Ranges that Jonathan mentioned earlier, Dawn of the Hunt also contains 7 other new maps, all with their own custom encounters. Let's start with this one.
The Feral Megaliths map starts off in the wild Ezomite forests. As you progress through the forest, you will find mysterious rune-carved stones that, when touched, surge with energy. After activating all the stones, you can find a grand henge, where all the energy is coalescing. You can then start an encounter. The area darkens, a storm moves in, and a concentration of energy summons a dangerous boss. You must fight and defeat the boss to get its rewards. Once you have defeated it, summon another. And another. And another. And another. You have 10 total waves of boss fights, which get incrementally more difficult.
Okay,
If
now
you
we're
manage to
talking.
defeat
There we
them,
go.
you
Never
get
mind.
full boss
There we go.
rewards,
This
but
is
also
exactly what I've
opportunities
been
to
asking
get new
for. Okay,
runes.
cool.
These can only be obtained
Give
from
me a,
this
now
map.
I gotta make a bossing build.
The Fractured Lake contains a surreal waterscape with fractured mirror-like objects. As you
Okay.
move around the map, the terrain itself elevates from below, creating
Blonde
the
relief.
ground you walk on. In this unique map, all the rare monsters are mirrored, so you're always fighting two of the same rare at the same time, which can prove quite difficult. If you manage to overcome that challenge and make it to the end of the map, you'll be presented with a broken mirror, a powerful altar-like object that contains an item within it. The item contained within is a new base type, either an amulet or a ring, that can be
Okay.
crafted to have
Well,
additional
not
prefixes
exactly new
or
base
suffixes
types, but yeah.
at the cost of the other. The last unique map we'll show today is one based around the essence mechanic. You enter a crystalline cavern, and you will find a powerful map boss imprisoned in the center. It is surrounded by many rare monsters, also imprisoned in essences. By freeing and defeating the rare monsters, the essence they held will be upgraded to a greater essence, and be added to the imprisoned map boss. How brave are you? How many essences will you add to the boss?
Oh.
Overdo it, and you might lose everything. Underdo it, and you might regret it. It's your choice. Speaking of essences, alongside
Okay.
visual improvements, you're now able to apply Varlorbs to corrupt the essences, with a range of unpredictable outcomes.
Okay, I like that. That's good.
It could
That's really
increase
good.
the number of essences,
No need for remnant of corruption.
reroll all the essences
Just
to the
literally
same
just call
type,
it. I like it. I
or
like
even
it.
upgrade the essences to greater essences.
Can we do that? Can we do that
What
in
if
the
they're
base game?
already greater essences?
Or in
well,
POE 1,
it can
whatever?
upgrade those
Or-
too. We have
Do that in
4
POE 1?
new corrupted essences. Essence of Hysteria, Delirium, Horror, and Insanity.
Yeah, they're back. Now what do they
Each
do?
corrupted essence has its own interesting combat mechanics. For example, the essence of insanity causes you to question even your own mind, as monsters split into shadowy clones, and you must locate the real one before a devastating icy explosion freezes everything around it. Each of these has their own crafting outcomes.
Yeah, that's
The essence of
really crazy.
insanity can be applied to a belt. It adds a mod that will ensure the next Varlorb used on the belt will guarantee adding 2 enchantments.
Wait, what? Okay, that's disgusting.
It's worth noting all the essences in the unique map can also be corrupted too, if you're willing to risk it. It's worth noting we have also added 10 extra Atlas passive points you can earn by completing 5 different unique maps.
Now, new maps are just the beginning. We had a goal where we wanted to make sure you were constantly finding exciting new content, and that it could be lurking around any corner. So, we have added a bunch of new things that you could stumble into in any map you run.
On your travels, you will sometimes encounter rogue exiles.
Hey,
Others like you
there we
who
go.
have been exiled and are openly hostile. Some are malicious, some are mad, while others are simply fiends for loot. They will challenge you, a fight to the death. They use the same skills available to players, and even the same items. They aren't just dressed up in those items, they're actually using them. It's going to feel like a true player versus player situation. Of course, if you are able to slay these exiles, those items will all drop on the ground. So if you encounter an exile using a powerful or valuable unique item, which you can see displayed under their life bar, you want to be damn sure you kill them.
Wait,
Because
no
if they kill you and
shot.
your party,
That's amazing.
they'll portal out, taking their items with them. Every fight will feel completely different
Okay, that's
depending on
cool.
the items they come equipped with.
That's cool.
These exiles are much smarter than your regular monster. They have capabilities to dodge roll, avoid your abilities with smart pathfinding, smart targeting, and much more action-packed gameplay.
All right, that's really cool.
Fortunately,
I like it.
they're
That's
like
awesome.
you, and they're not super durable. Unless, of course, they're wearing uniques like Calm's Heart, in which case, expect a longer battle. There are 12 different rogue exiles you can find, each with their own skills and personalities. Some may insult you, while others may admire your honor in combat.
Another encounter you might stumble onto in Dawn of the Hunt are one of 4 new unique strongboxes.
Strongboxes are chests with modifiers. When you try to open them, they activate traps and spawn waves of monsters that you must defeat to access the loot. Let's take a look at 2 of the new unique boxes that are harder to find and behave just a little bit differently. The Ogham's Legacy Strongbox has a corpse splayed out in front of the rune-carved stone. Upon interacting with the stone, you activate Forbidden Ezomite magic, which revives the monster as a powerful rare.
Okay, revives it
The
5
Strongbox
times.
comes with a modifier, which determines how many times it will revive that rare. Each time you defeat the monstrosity, the Strongbox revives it again, adding an extra modifier to the monster. With each resurrection, it becomes more difficult, but also more rewarding. This Strongbox is infused with Thaumaturgy
Why is
from
there is no
ancient
mecha-
file
wait,
technology.
Oh, I did not set it up right
Eshel's
on Twitch,
Torment
did I?
has a powerful artifact inside
Oh shit.
and is guarded by chaos itself. Defeating the monsters will
That's not
grant
good.
you a unique item with a specific corrupted outcome. You'll have to find the other two for yourself to see what they do.
Would be lines if
Now,
I put drops
let's
in
talk about the introduction to the endgame. Upon starting the endgame, Doriani tasks you with cleansing corruption to help restore the land. However, in
Thank you.
practice, the quest objective just sent you on a grind to clear 15 maps. We wanted to make the quest to unlock your Atlas passives much more interesting.
Now, Doriani is tasking you with a more specific objective. On the Atlas, you will find areas of corruption caused by the beast. In the center of each one, you will find a corrupted nexus, the source of the affliction. In the areas leading up to the nexus, you will notice that corruption spills out from slain enemies and amalgamates into powerful monsters. Corrupted maps existed on the Atlas before, but we've done significant work on improving these monsters. We've also done a full pass on the modifiers on these maps to make them more interesting and more rewarding. Once you reach the Nexus, you'll have a new task: cleanse the source of corruption. When you defeat the last rare in those maps, they will spawn one of 3 terrifying bosses, amalgamations of corruption itself. After defeating that boss, Doriani will come and cleanse the corruption for good. As the remains of the boss are purged of corruption, it coalesces into raw crystallized power, which you can use to gain points for your Atlas passive skill tree, the upgrade system that allows you to add and enhance content in your maps. We didn't stop there though. When you complete a corrupted nexus, all of the remaining surrounding corrupted maps will become cleansed maps. Cleansed maps also have new monsters, a new boss, and their own set of modifiers and rewards, including finding fracturing orbs by slaying cleansed enemies.
Wait, whoa. Okay.
These orbs can be used in crafting on a rare item to cause one of its modifiers to become fractured. A fractured modifier is one that cannot be modified by any means. You are able to freely modify the item, ensuring the fractured modifier will never change. If you get the right item with the right mod,
So what
it
if we
can
added
prove
for
to be a
crafting
very
there? Because
powerful
I
crafting
saw
base
some
indeed.
orbs that I'm like,
You must
wait a
now
minute.
choose. Do you complete all the corrupted maps and then the Nexus? Or maybe you beeline to the Nexus, complete it, and do all the remaining maps cleansed. Both have rewards to entice you and challenges to assess.
Now, let's have a talk about towers.
Okay, we're just going.
One thing we've had a lot of feedback on is the busy work around running towers and managing your tablets. The first change we've made here is that we have reduced the number of towers drastically, so there are now 1/3 as many as before, but we've made them much more powerful.
Yeah, it looks like you can put 3
To
tablets
start
in.
with, tablets now inherently add twice as many mechanics, but
Yeah,
that's
that's
not
good.
all. Running higher tier maps and towers now increases the number of mechanics applied by tablets. By tier 15, the bonus is double, allowing a single tablet to now add 4 times as many mechanics as before. So, we're running far fewer towers, dealing with fewer tablets, and affecting even more maps than before. But because there are fewer towers overlapping with each other, you won't get as many opportunities to stack different tablets. In order to solve this, we've made it so that each tower can consume up to 3 tablets at once. You always get 1 slot on completing the tower, but if you can complete a tower with more mods on the waystone, you can unlock a 2nd or 3rd slot. Overall,
okay.
this
That's
allows
cool.
for even more juicing from towers, while drastically reducing the amount of busy work you have to do. On top of that, towers are much more interesting maps because they can now spawn with all mechanics, including bosses.
Each tower map has a new boss. Let's take a look at a couple here.
The boss fight of the Alpine Ridge map has 2 powerful witches contesting for territory. One witch has an affinity for ice, the other fire. Who will win? Hopefully neither. The boss of the Sinking Spire map is a remnant of the Val that has been charged with lightning. It uses a full suite of lightning abilities. But be careful, if any of them hit the surrounding constructs, they will power up.
Another thing that we've seen a lot of feedback about is sustaining waystones. As we looked into it, we realized that the people who couldn't sustain waystones were dying a lot. A lot more than we had expected. And that made us realize something. During the campaign, the expectation is that you can die multiple times in order to learn how to overcome challenges. You are able to learn how the monsters behave, adapt to their skills, and eventually overcome them. But as soon as you get to the endgame, you are effectively no longer allowed to die if you want to sustain waystones. By the time you are getting towards the end of endgame, we want you to have to be careful
So
not to
how
die.
are they doing this?
But it certainly shouldn't be that we have such a sudden shift as you run your first maps.
The first change we're making is you can now respawn and return to a map if you die,
Okay.
continuing from where you left off. When you start the endgame, you get up to 6 total attempts per map. As you add more modifiers to a waystone, the number of respawns goes down. This means that as you get to the point that you're running every waystone as a rare, you will have to be more careful. In parties, everyone gets to respawn that number of times.
Oh, okay. So you actually
But
have
we
the.
still think it's important that you can kill a boss in one go.
Got it.
In
Okay.
order to allow that to happen, we've made a change so that once you start the boss fight, it changes over to the same respawning system we use for pinnacle bosses. This means that the map owner can choose to respawn everyone at the same time. Another complaint we've seen a lot of is players not wanting to do the pinnacle content because of the experience penalty from dying. A change we've made here is that all pinnacle content now no longer grants experience, but also no longer removes experience on death either.
Okay. That's good.
Dawn of the Hunt also brings the first batch of Twilight Order reliquary keys from the early access supporter packs. These keys contain items selected by our supporters. They
The
can
only
contain
thing
any
I'm
unique
kind
item
of
found in
worried
Path of
about
Exile 2.
with that portal system
If the
is
selected
just,
item is a pinnacle boss drop, then
does it
only
make sense
special
to
keys
somebody?
dropped by this content will be able to provide these items.
like I think it does.
For
But when they
example,
add stuff like that,
Hand
I
of
like
Wisdom
it.
in action can
but-
only come from a key dropped by Zesht.
If it gets too convoluted, then that's when things get,
We're
because people
also
come up with
making a
like a
change that allows
20-step
pinnacle
fix
boss
for
units
some
to
of
drop
these
at any
problems, and it's
difficulty.
like,
Rarer uniques will be
that would
rarer
work,
at lower difficulties,
but how
but
do you
still
communicate
possible
that
to find.
to a million different people?
This applies to the drop chances for the reliquary keys from this content as well.
Okay, cool. But I think
We
this is a good
spoke
fix.
about towers
I like
and
it.
tablets earlier, but we have also added a suite of unique tablets. Each of these adds crazy interactions to the maps influenced by it. For example, this unique tablet allows you to run any map in a tower's radius without requiring connections, which can be quite
Wait,
useful
oh
for
my
jumping
goodness,
gaps
that's
and
huge.
traveling around your atlas. And this tablet causes all runic monsters spawned during expedition encounters to be duplicated, and weakens all expedition monsters that emerge from the ground. The Atlas tree has also been expanded.
I
and you
haven't
can
seen
find
an
many
idol
of the
like
new
that at
mechanics
all.
There, and
I'm just
improvements
saying.
to existing
Okay,
ones
cool.
too.
Let's go. So we
Now,
got
through this live stream, we have mentioned quite a few new crafting options that we've added. New runes,
8
corrupted
days?
essences, fractured mods, and jewelry crafting
Let's
bases.
go. I'm ready. My
But
body's
we
ready.
did have just one more crafting system to talk about. Recombination.
Expedition was the only in-game mechanic that was lacking a crafting system, so that needed to change. Recombination is a mechanic that might be familiar
They're
to some
doing that.
players. It allows you to merge two items together, hoping to get the best elements of each on a single new item. This new crafting bench will be unlocked as you complete your first expedition, and requires artifacts found during expeditions
But
to
there's
fuel
no
it.
way to guarantee.
The rarer the mods on the item you are combining,
can't
the
craft
more expensive the cost.
That
unique
wraps up all the
modifiers.
major in-game changes we're talking about today. With all the system changes and new content, we
Okay.
can't wait to get in there, start blasting maps, and obliterating monsters. There is one more thing we wanted to clarify before we move on, which is that all the content we've talked about today will be made available in the existing early access leagues, so you can play your existing characters. However, there will be new leagues made for those who wish to start in a fresh economy. It is recommended to start over and get the full new experience in the Dawn of the Hunt leagues.
For all our existing early access players, we're really looking forward to joining you playing in this new update. For those who don't already have access and are interested in playing Path of Exile 2 Dawn of the Hunt, you are able to at any time purchase an early access supporter pack at www.pathofexile2.com. Additionally, the Paladin and Penance supporter packs are now available to purchase in Path of Exile 2 and contain 6 microtransactions each and the full pack's face value in points. All the microtransactions contained within these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power or progression in any way. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. We're just about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. With release at the end of next week, our community team will be posting crucial information you'll need for the release. Keep an eye on the news. On release weekend, we expect to launch the new mystery box and many new microtransactions, including Path of Exile 2's first alternate skill effects. Thanks for joining us today and checking out our latest developments. We're looking forward to playing the Huntress, trying new builds, and exploring the new endgame next week. We'll begin the Q&A shortly, so please get your questions ready.
Okay. I am curious to see if certain questions are answered, so I'm going to be listening to that. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think they're going to go like 4 hours like they did before, but, yeah. Oh, I could do that. Oh, we're just straight into it. Jeez, that was actually
Good
great.
morning, Exiles, and welcome to the Q&A portion.
Now, are they going to
today.
turn him up, or are they going to...
Very exciting reveal with lots and lots in it, exceeding my expectations, particularly in crafting. But on that note, we're joined here by Jonathan and Mark to talk about all that we've seen today and more in the future of Path of Exile 2. And you had an update about the recombination.
Yes,
first,
that's right.
though.
That's right. Yeah, so
Okay, I'll have
we
to just
actually
turn it up.
last night had a bit of a design session and realized that we weren't actually fully happy with the way that recombination worked. So we actually made quite a big change to it, which wasn't reflected in that video, obviously. Which is basically that we sort of wanted to give a bit more control to the player over how recombination works.
Okay.
And we also kind
I
of
do
weren't
like
really happy
that
about the fact
idea.
that recombinators is something that like kind of matters a lot for really, really ultra endgame players. But it wasn't something that was really mattering a lot for like the people who effectively got access to the feature at the start. So we've actually changed it now so that the way it works is that you pick which mods you want on the each item from each item, and then it gives you a percentage chance of success based on the number you pick. So if you pick just like one from one and one from the other, then the chance is much higher. But if you pick if you pick 6 mods, it'll become practically impossible. So effectively, like the more you're wanting
well,
to
that-
design
that
the
works.
item,
That works.
the
I'm
less
gonna
of a
move
chance
things
of
around a
actually
little bit,
having
but,
success.
yeah.
So that means that if you just want to get like a mod, if you want to get an item with like, okay, these 2 mods that I found off the ground, that's relatively easy. If you want to get an item which has all of them, then very hard. So we think that's a much better design because it means you can kind of use the recombinators actually become something that you can use even from from the first point you get them. But there's still this kind of end game, like for perfect stuff, you might still be able to do it with more. It is kind of balanced though, so that like if you pick literally all 6, then it's going to be like incredibly low to the point of like don't even try that. But like 4 mods might be a good thing to sort of be striving for, that kind of thing, and then exalt the other 2, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the new design of that. So hopefully that'll be in by the time 0-2 comes out. We've kind of got
I'm
got a
curious
plan
to
for
see how
doing
that works.
but yeah, like I think it's a much better design than what we had before for recombinators.
If it's not there for O2O, it'll be as
very
soon as it
soon.
can afterwards.
Very
But
soon,
yeah, spur of the moment, night before the live stream design sessions.
Yeah.
But
Been a few of those.
increased player agency and visibility into the success result is just a win. And honestly, took way too long to get to the point of us actually going, oh, this is just straight up better to have observability into that and the freedom of choice. So.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I just hope
Recombination
it's
definitely felt like
actually
something that
early
was
usefulness.
both really
Like,
high end in terms of the crafting that it was intended
Can I
for,
use it
but
by Act
also
3,
just
Act
even
4,
understanding it. This seems
like,
much more intuitive.
at a
Yes.
decent rate.
You just pick what you
Selecting
want.
the mods you want.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So it does sound like it's a little bit of a nerf for the very high end of crafting, though. Like,
It might end up being, but I'm not like it sort of depends on how the numbers come out. Like because we only just designed this, we need to still work out like exactly how the numbers end up looking. But I mean, look, we have to make sure. Obviously, whenever we're designing any crafting system, we have to be really sure that we're not like screwing over finding stuff on the ground. So you have to sort of have that balance, and that's so that kind of informs everything we do with crafting usually.
One difference here, though, of course, is if the success chance fails, both items are destroyed as opposed to always keeping one.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Because basically
Whether or not
percent chance for success, and if it fails, item's gone. So
roughly, what do you think you try to pitch just choosing 2 mods at? Like,
it depends on what mods you're selecting, but I'm kind of thinking kind of like 35%-ish kind of thing for like 2 normal mods, that kind of thing. Like for them both, for them both. For if you pick 2, and then but we'll
it kind of depends. Again,
it kind of depends. We'll see how
higher tier mods are rare. And
yeah, exactly. So it sort of depends
it
on the
also
situation.
the other thing is it's going to now have a fixed cost, so it's not going to
And the idea is
dollar
like
based on
and the idea is like doing a single expedition should be enough to do a recombination. So you're going to be doing them like relatively often as you're doing expeditions.
so is the part of Expedition where you get to craft with the NPCs still a thing then? Now that you're adding this?
Yeah, I mean you've still got that whole mechanic, and like so it's effectively it's competing for the artifacts.
Yeah.
Between recombination versus buying things from that other way.
So is there some buffs intended for that then to make it more competitive?
Not yet. It definitely needs some love in the future, but not at this time.
Yeah. It seems like the systems can kind of go hand in hand, where one is giving you items that you can then potentially recombinate.
That is also true. You can use the ingredients of one in the other, or the outcome of one as an ingredient in another.
Cool. We'll talk more about crafting a little bit later on for sure, because there was a lot announced there, which I'm quite excited about. Definitely exceeded my predictions for what you'd be adding in terms of crafting. But firstly, though, just a quick clarification on the league. So there's not going to be a wipe for the new players joining us. If you were playing on a character, you can still keep playing on a character. But a lot of long-term Path of Exile players know the importance of playing on a fresh start, and that's also really important for you guys as well.
For sure, yeah. I mean, basically, if we don't have like any character that's come from before, you're just not gonna because the balance is so different and because so many things have changed. There's like no point in even listening to feedback for someone who's playing in the old league. Like it really has to be that you're doing the fresh start, and we're sort of seeing how things go in the new economy.
Thank you.
So like we were really sort of it was kind of an interesting decision about whether or not we should make it so that all the content is exclusive. What amount of content would be exclusive to the league versus not. And the issue that we had is that so I mean like a league means something in Path of Exile. In order for something to rise to the level of a league, it needs like a certain amount of features. And the original thing we were thinking about doing that way would be the Asmeri Wisps, but there wasn't quite like the kind of like meta mechanics and stuff with that. So we didn't quite rise to the level of feeling like it deserved to be a challenge league. And at the same time, we've also got a lot of new players playing Path of Exile 2 who never played Path of Exile before. So we're a little bit...
Okay, so the Wisp are not a permanent
we kind of were
thing.
deciding, okay, should we...
Okay, cool.
Yeah, should we make them exclusive or not? We sort of decided,
I actually missed
that
that was just
one,
a
we're not
league
going to.
thing.
And then what we'll probably try and do is
Or
for the
just
next...
a hunt mechanic.
for the next... league that we do, we'll actually make it a proper challenge league with like its own exclusive mechanic and so on. But yeah, it's a little bit funny because like in early access is a bit of a different situation with different, and so yeah, we'll sort of see how this goes anyway. But certainly I would encourage everyone just like start again on a new character. And I think, you'll have a much better time because, obviously if there's structural changes to the passive tree. It's like if you log in with your old character, you're going to have like, your tree's going to get reset. You have to do stuff. There's things like that are going to happen that mean that, and also just balance changes, right? Like huge numbers of them. So you're going to have a better time playing from the start.
That's it. And speaking of the Huntress then, so we saw initial Huntress quite some time ago now and had some hands-on time with it and things, but I certainly, having played that before and played it now recently, the Huntress has changed quite a lot.
Yeah.
So what was the, how hard was it to get it ready for release? What was kind of the key there?
I mean, it's funny because class design is one of those things where every time you add something, it can make you reevaluate everything else, which is why it's so hard to predict like how long a class will take. So like it changed a lot since the last time we had we were showing Huntress. And honestly, like, it's like while there are some skills that you will still see, like it just plays completely different. And I mean, whenever we're looking at like how we're going to design something like this, it really comes down to like what is it's the special about the character class? Like how can we double down on that to make sure it feels different? So with the Huntress, you've obviously got spears as a base type. the key difference between a spear and any other weapon type is that you can both use them at melee and you can also use them at range. You can throw them. And so because of that, we really were just really trying to incentivize everything possible so that you use both of those things. And action RPG players, they generally speaking, the balance can often be such that you only really want to do one thing and do that one thing well. So trying to incentivize the kind of ranged and melee is, quite a thing. And I mean, the way we do it effectively is try to make sure that like there are combo chains where, a ranged thing can combo with something that's melee and a melee thing can combo with something that's ranged, and then also give you good abilities to move between the two states. And so that kind of means that you end up with a very agile character, like you're constantly moving like backwards and forwards and kind of moving around. And I would say that given that it's the Dex character, that it's good that it feels that way, that it feels the most agile of all of the melee character classes. That's been a really good one. But look, there are, in terms of changes, there are just changes all the time. Like the frenzy charge thing was like relatively late in development. Like there's like quite a lot of things going on that just meant that the field kept on evolving. And another big one, of course, was parry, which I honestly was very skeptical of working. And Mark, Mark was the one who saved it. Honestly, I was like, you know what? There was like 3 times I think where I was like, you know what? I don't think it's gonna work. And then you were like, okay, I think we're gonna save this.
I was like, give me a week.
Yeah, exactly. And it works completely differently for most games, because in most games, obviously, with parrying, the way that works is that you have to time to push the block button at exactly the right time. But that's just something that just wouldn't work in our combat system, because you're often packs of monsters. It's just like you don't really have the ability to read combat in that way in our game. And at the same time, we need to make something where there's going to be if a single monster in a pack hits you, you need to be able to respond to that with something that's going to you need to be able to respond in a way where you don't just then immediately get hit by a bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
So having it so that the parry, it always parries, but it's then taking advantage of what the parry does to the monster by following up with something that's going to give you an explosion or something like that to kind of deal with the pack. That's something that sort of allows that counter gameplay to work in our game. So you've kind of got 2 primary parry follow-ups. You've got the frenzy charge one, which dashes back, which means that you don't have to worry about the monsters hitting you. And then you've also got the one that there's another one which I don't believe we showed there, which called Fangs of Frost, which does a counter where you attack
it's like
with ice, which freezes the
new
pack.
retaliation.
So it's another way to kind of. So in both cases, you've kind of got something that's kind of dealing with the fact that you've got all these monsters around you, and that was kind of the biggest challenge I think that we had with that mechanic.
I'll also make note of, there was a support gem I found that you can attach to any attack that allows you to follow up parry to generate a frenzy charge too, so it doesn't even have to be the backflip.
In that case, there's other,
create your own parry.
Yeah, I can't wait to see all the
support. Of course,
gems.
there's always Sniper's Mark, and there's a skill that does give you a guaranteed crit, so that's a potential option as well. Like you've got a few different ways to generate them.
Because parry guarantees a light stun.
Yeah.
You always get that small window to actually engage or do a thing before before you're under danger again.
And I'll tell you this, I am one of those players who never parry, right? In any game ever, because I can never do it. It's always just so frustrating. So I was very skeptical of that, but it feels really good. You've both managed to make it something that's easy to do, because you can just hold the button down and parry at any time. There's no skill involved in that. But at the same time, you've incentivized making it so that you do want to still try and time it as best you can personally. How have you done that? How have you made it so that you actually still want to kind of play it skillfully?
Well, I mean, ultimately, anytime you're holding down the parry button is when you're not attacking, right?
Exactly.
So you still want to kind of minimize the window, but at the same time, the timing is just not not as bad. But the nice thing as well is that once you do successfully parry, it's very obvious. You get the sound, you get the token on the monster. It's very chunky.
Yeah.
So it means it's very obvious when you're supposed to counterattack. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. I think that it came out really well. And honestly, one of the funny things about it is that it immediately made me realize how bad shields are in comparison, which is why we're also trying to ninja in a change to how shields work at the last minute, which we'll see if it makes it into 020. I was playing around with it last night.
This was 8 p.m. last night.
Yeah, 8 p.m. last night, exactly. I was
messing with this.
Yeah, messing around with it. And I won't talk too much about how that's going to work, but effectively we want to make shields, the shields better as well, and kind of build something into those to make them more interesting.
Yeah.
So that's the plan there. We'll see if it makes it for 020.
Yeah, following that kind of similar design space idea of being able to do a bit more with it.
Yeah,
and then
100%.
that feed into other skills and things like that as well.
100%.
There's a lot of room there to play with.
Yeah.
So we talked about Huntress being very, very combo heavy, and she has the deepest combo chains out of anyone so far, even exceeding like things you can do with Monk. You got 3-4 different skills deep of things you can start to synergize together. So how do you balance? How do you make that fun? Firstly, like rather than like onerous, for example.
Well, I mean, I guess there's a few things. Like one of them is it just has to be very readable and understandable when, like, like what you can do and when you can do it. And I think the other thing that's really to our advantage here is reusing skills in multiple ways, so you can make a deeper combo chain without requiring you to be using as many skills in order to do it. So the way that Whirling Slash and Tornadoes interact with ground effects and kind of like all that stuff sort of means that, you're using Whirling Slash multiple times as part of the same combo chain. And that's an idea, I think, that I'd like to try and explore more, because I think that it is a cool way to kind of extend the combo chain, as I said, without sort of getting too many things involved, and that makes it a lot cooler. So I'll think a bit more about, how we can apply that to other classes and other skills, but it's worked out really well here.
Yeah, it's a bit of like a loose create your own combo
Maybe
system in a
something
way.
with, like, the
Obviously there's
volcanic
intended combos, but
lines
because
or
it's
whatever.
interacting with
That'd be
something
cool.
that's fundamental, like ground effects, you're
Fisher
able to combo
stuff.
with anything that creates a ground effect. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Like I added shocked ground to the backflip skill, or I got a companion pet that had a shocked ground aura.
Nice.
As like, so that was just there, and that was available all the time.
I mean, it's funny as well because it also works on just enemy ground effects, and so sometimes you can just get a damage boost because the rare just happened to be dropping ground fire or something. So that's kind of fun. But it's been it's just a lot of fun to play. The first time I ran into that was actually in the graveyard, where there's these like chests that like pop open with fire, and like I was using tornadoes, and then one of them just randomly turned into a fire tornado, and I'm like, oh, what happened there? Oh, yeah, sweet. It was just like a really cool moment where it just sort of interacted with the environment, which was really fun.
It always feels like you're getting a little bit of something extra for free when you're taking advantage of the enemy effects, or a boss fight that just has burning ground everywhere. It's like, sweet. So how do you go about balancing, though, when you have a class that has deeper combos and kind of somewhat requires you to do a bit more, versus a class or a skill or a build that is just bonk?
I mean, you have to ultimately make the combos matter, right? And I think actually that's one of those things that we're trying to really focus on with the balance changes we're doing in Dawn of the Hunt more generally, is making sure that even, like, I think it's the case where some of the combo gameplay kind of degenerates a little bit by end game in a way that, like, I want to make sure it still feels rewarded. And so we were sort of doing various checks, recently about, like as a random example, right? Like, so on the Mercenary, we found that doing, but when you get to endgame, doing armor break, what's it called? The armor piercing that causes armor break, followed with high velocity rounds, is just worse than just using high velocity rounds. And that's like really bad, right? Like we have to make sure that we're improving that stuff. So it's like sometimes you just get these things where like the balance by endgame kind of degenerates in a way that that doesn't support the combo anymore. And so we have to make sure that when we're looking at buffing things, that we're like making sure that when we're doing it, it's to support the fact that using more things is actually a good thing. We're really trying to make sure that we're bringing some of that, improving some of that stuff as well as we're making the balance changes.
So do you have like a baseline there of where like the really simplest build should be, the build that just bonks? Like,
I mean, you mean in terms of damage or in terms of like what it does? I mean, we always want you to be able to build that way. But
players have to do a combo.
I mean,
like, for
no,
people who don't want
ultimately
to,
you never have to, right? But it sort of what it means is that you are sacrificing something. And look, the ideal situation is that like you don't feel like you have to do combos. You feel like you want to do combos, right? Like, because you feel rewarded for them. It's like should feel like a fun, like, oh, I can add this, like it's the feeling you should be getting.
Yeah. I think the Huntress is doing that very well. It must have been like extremely hard, because I don't think I've ever seen this like ranged melee combo done well before.
Right. Well, I mean, it does require a lot of discipline, and it means that a lot of skills like end up on the cutting room floor because you try them out and then you realize, well, if this is in the game, then that's the only thing I'm ever going to do. So you got to be really careful about that stuff.
Certainly, playing the Huntress now makes me go back and look at the other classes and be like, we need to up that the level there, and we missed the mark a little bit now because this is better. And who's to say the next class won't even be better and make us question even this? But
but that's the way it is with class design.
That's what he
hey,
says.
go back and change it.
Literally,
All
when
I'm
you make a
saying,
new
let's
class,
go
you
back.
question
Let's go
everything.
back and
He's
do
not
it.
understating the level of questioning everything.
Let's do it.
Yeah, do you see like going back to the monk at some point and looking for more like opportunities to link skills together with combos?
we haven't got to the full skill set for any class yet already, and we need to add more pieces for a lot.
I think there's at least 4 skills that were designed and then aren't in the monk currently.
Ranger the same. There was extra poison skills. It was intended to be more chaos dots. There's all kinds of stuff. We have to obviously at some point fill all of that in. Hard to say when, but
we're going to try and incrementally get it, like much like how Ray Spectre and I mean the mount works with the Huntress, but we were like, let's give something for the Ranger this time. Let's give something for the summoners out there this time, and so we're just going to keep filling in those gaps over time.
And it feels like you're getting better at class and skill design as you go too. So I imagine the last class you're going to release is going to be like amazing. You'll look back at the first ones and be like, ooh.
Possibly.
Well, that is the worry, but whatever.
But look, with that just means we've got another round of going through everything and improving stuff again, right? So
and that will never end.
That's it. So with the parry came the kind of looking at the player getting stunned, in particular player heavy stun. So it's always hard to tell players like, hey, we're going to do something to you and it's going to be a bad thing. You're not going to like this.
Well, the funny thing,
let's talk about why.
there's a few things like that actually, because so I mean, for a start, like we needed the downside of parry to be like that. Yeah, you get stunned out of it. But then when we're looking at how long, like we're like, okay, right now, even, and it's this true with shield block as well, by the way. It's like if you get stunned out of that, the amount of time that you get stunned out for is actually not even enough time for most bosses to do a follow-up attack on you. And it's like, well, where's the downside if it doesn't even have enough time? So we did have to extend that out a little bit, and it makes you a little bit more careful. But in just to warn people, right, there's a few other things, like we lowered, what's it called, the I can't remember the name of that thing now, the thing that makes you more easy to be elemental statuses apply to you. Ailment threshold. That's right, ailment threshold. Yeah. So we lowered ailment threshold to actually make it so the player has those mechanics happen more to them, right? Because like right now through campaign, like you barely get frozen or burning or shocked, really, to be honest. Yeah. So there's stuff like that we've had to do to kind of make sure that that, because if you don't have that stuff actually happen to you, then there's no point in mitigating it. And it's like, things like charms were like not very useful because those mechanics weren't happening to you. There's stuff like that, right? The downsides do actually matter in order to make it so that that you then
that sounds like a
other
balance
things you can
change
do
that
to
should have been
bypass
mentioned. I'm
those
just saying.
downsides. So that's kind of one of those things that we just have to make sure is
I'm
there.
curious to see how that
I
feels.
did always find it a little bit strange that like I was able to count the number of times I was frozen in the campaign on one finger.
For sure. For sure. But
it's always by those vile ghosts.
yes.
So expect a little bit more, a little bit more danger from the stun. I definitely died a couple times to getting heavy stunned.
Yeah, it can
So
happen.
that's mostly
so
occurring
element
if you're,
stuff
like,
is going to
doing
be
bad blocking or
stronger
parrying, but
for enemies.
can it also
That's
occur just
kinda
from
scary.
like taking a really big hit or something?
Nope.
I can see a
At least
lot of people
We've
complain
discussed
about
that. We've
that,
gone
though.
through
I'm
a
just
whole
saying.
bunch of different,
We
like,
saw that with the flasks.
should certain boss abilities heavy stun you, and if you speak into enough stun threshold, it like demotes it to a light stun, and if that, there's all kinds of multi-hour discussions we've had, and we haven't really come to anything conclusive there. But it's only from mount, raise shield, and parry, and of which, at least for all of them, you can see your stagger bar filling up. It's worth noting things like evasion apply to. So when you're parrying, we turn off your evasion from taking damage because the block does, right? And otherwise you'd be like, I'm going to parry it. Oh, I evaded it. It didn't parry. Yeah. But you can evade the stagger build up. So you don't take the damage anyway, just
so the
before
evasion
anyone
still
misunderstands
works.
that.
The evasion still works.
Yeah.
So high evasion will mean you can parry for longer. There's a bunch of parry stuff on the tree, including damage affecting the debuff, the duration of the debuff, so you get to benefit for it longer. Reducing stagger is all over the place for both mount and so in the dex section of the tree. So yeah, you can mitigate. I mean, my expectation is probably you'll get some in-game builds that are just like, I can parry forever and like, there's no real consequence. So not every skill can be parried, of course.
It otherwise follows the slam rules. If it's a slam from above or below, you can't parry it. Much to your frustration for some things.
I mean, there are a few things where I've got disagreements about what looks like it's parryable, but...
my hopeful there was when it's contentious, people would bring it up and would change it, right?
Sure.
So, like, if it's on the line, it's meant to be blockable. Like, if it isn't clear. And there was no way with hundreds of monsters and many dozens of bosses that we weren't going to miss some things, so...
So you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but action RPGs kind of naturally pull you towards one damage type, one skill, one specific thing, and optimizing as much as possible, because otherwise you're just making a bad build a lot of the time. But I noticed Huntress has a bit of everything. She's got bleed, she's got all the elements, she's got physical. The only thing she doesn't have is like chaos, but there's kind of poison on the tree right there. So how do you like promote this like all of this different stuff together? Are you supposed to only kind of be relegated to using 2 or 3 skills, or are these supposed to come together? And how do you manage that?
Well, there's a few things. So one of them is that we provide a lot of combos with the expectation that you'll probably be focusing around like a few specific things rather than necessarily using the whole tree.
Honestly, now I'm just really
so like there's that. The other thing
see
as well
what
is just making
people
sure
ask
that in the passive
how they
tree there's sort of
respond.
options that go across both. So the Huntress's passive tree has quite a lot of things like extra melee damage if you've done a ranged attack recently, and then it's got things like bonuses against blinded enemies because while you're in a whirling slash, there's so it's sort of stuff like that where we're trying to carefully think like, well, how can we come up with something that's interesting and buffs everything that you might want to be doing, that kind of synergizes with the stuff that that Huntress can do. But it is honestly hard because like many categories of things only matter for one thing, part of a combo. So it's just like trying to come up with categories that can somehow span all of them in different ways. And ideally, we can achieve that. But yeah, it is pretty hard.
Generally, yeah, you're going to become more niche or more selective because, again, even mixing elemental and bleed is just probably often going to result
You
in something
probably wouldn't do
suboptimal.
both elemental and bleed. You'd probably choose one or the other. But that's why we kind of try to make sure that, like, so you've got sort of linkages between them though, right? Because it's like, for example, the thunderous leap detonates the spears that you do from the bleed thing. So it's like kind of like the idea there is to like it changes how that skill then has a use in the combo with the other one. So even if that skill itself isn't doing a lot of damage, it's triggering something that's taking advantage of all the damage bonuses you got for the for your bleed stuff. So that's kind of like the idea, is just to link all that stuff in a bit so that you can use the non like directly synergistic things in a kind of more synergistic way.
Yeah, that's if you didn't see that from the earlier trailer, it's you spear them with a bunch of spears and then jump on them and explodes them for bleed. Amazing. So, but yeah, that's using an elemental skill like in another way as a detonator. But and even more, you've got weapon swaps as well.
Yeah, of course.
Hi.
I mean, there's all those systems we already added about all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, like,
Have you
what
got the
will be interesting is
video?
whether
I
or
do
not we
wanna
miss
check it out
something
again, see
cross
if there's
class.
anything I
Right, that's
missed.
always a concern. Is someone will come up with some way to abuse something, between something that's going on in the spear skills with some other class that we failed to consider.
Yeah, I mean, so that's it. When we look at a new class, we typically like call it like, Huntress is spears, but kind of not really. It's a signature weapon, but
absolutely.
nothing in the Ascendancy's prescribes spears.
Exactly. So effectively, we take great pains to make sure that the Ascendancies never mentions weapon types. That they're always generalized. So, for example, the like infusion mechanic in the Amazon, it just says projectiles, it doesn't say spears, and the reason it does that is so that you could make an Amazon who is a bow user, and that's all fine. So like it's effectively like
Open-ended.
It's open-ended, and honestly, like I know that Mark does like. It makes the constraint a lot harder for how to design an Ascendancy class when you have to think about it that way, for sure.
Oh, it'd be much, much easier to just put a bunch of cool spear stuff in there. But now only really... I mean, it was similar to the original POE 1 Saboteur. It called out traps and mines. And so if you're a trap and mine character, what are you doing? Well, you could do something else, but no one else is playing that thing,
Right.
It isn't... it is easier to design. It is certainly less flexible and open as to what people can play in the different combinations and all that. So yeah.
How much do you have to consider the different weapons and the skills and how they interact together when you're originally designing them, or is there just literally so many possible combinations you're just like, the players will take care of that for us?
I mean, I think it is relatively impossible to come up with everything, but certainly we have to consider, like, is this going to be broken with anything else in particular? And there just has to be certain rules for things about, like, how easy is it to apply this debuff, how easy it is to consume this debuff. And even then, it's like, we often make mistakes and have issues. I mean...
When he says relatively impossible, it is actually impossible.
Actually.
But... I mean,
That's
just,
relative.
but even just looking at the balance pass we're doing at the moment, right? I mean, there's hundreds of things like that, that we still. I mean, there's things that we could never honestly understand all of the different broken things that could possibly exist, and so it's like it really does depend a lot on like on seeing reports on what people are doing on some level, right? But then I think that what will happen over time is that obviously, like, the game's still relatively new. We're still making relatively big changes. Over time, the balance, I think, will get to the point where we no longer have these like crazy outliers to the same extent. And it should mean that we get to some sort of relative class parity. By parity, what I mean is like, people playing all the different classes rather than focusing only on a few as we get towards full release. Because, right now it's obviously very skewed. Because there's certain broken things, so we just the balance over time we'll get there.
It's one of the main goals and benefits of the early access. Is just like, let's get the balance of characters right. And
Okay, I like it. I like the
this
statement.
patch release was
Let's see
always
what
going
they
to have
do.
1,000 problems, or probably 10,000 problems. You know, the next one
Okay,
will have
now I
half
just wanna
that,
see the
next one
notes
half
at
that,
this
and
point.
probably eventually it's going to be down to like, here's only a
Because
few
this is one of the
things going,
statements
you
I
know,
was really hoping
out
that they
of
would
whack.
actually
There's
talk
always going to
about
be
was
something
this right here.
because we add too much content for it to even be controlled. Again, there are too many uniques, too many supports, too many skills, and too many other changes for any amount of people. Like you're talking about a matter of you'd have to put in like thousands and thousands of hours internally to find it, and then you give it to the players. There's so many people, it's going to take literally 5 minutes. So it is. It's very beneficial. And we're lucky in that regard that we get to that level of testing and feedback, and on such a mass level, and especially with things like Ninja and all of that, and other people being able to see it and discuss it more openly. We're just going to be able to iterate on it even faster. But yeah, every single patch you're going to see a pretty substantial change in what's going to happen here. Yeah.
Thanks for making the broken builds. And
Well, 100%.
I mean, you mentioned support gems. It's like over 100 support gems added just this patch. It's
insane,
it's already
actually.
like
Just-
so many.
just saying.
And with you doing a different weapon for each of the 16 classes.
Yeah,
and
I mean, there's going to be a lot
16
by the time we're
weapons,
done. But there kind of has
it's
to be,
all-
right? Because
I know, that's what you made it. You made this system that you need so many supports to support.
You
Because
do.
otherwise, it's not going to work. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
especially with this one support system, it's like, what have you guys done?
Well, I mean, look, this is why we have recommendations, and hopefully we can improve those as well, and continue to get that better.
There's certainly room for the complexity to get a little bit out of control here. So the recommendeds are going to become more and more important.
Right.
So we need to make sure those are very much right.
for sure.
You must be looking to players even to find some of those recommendations down the line as well.
In some
like what-
cases,
yeah,
in some cases.
what stuff is popularly getting
But
used.
the
for some
thing with the
play styles?
recommendations though is that they can't really take into account what you've already got on the gem. So the recommendations have to be just sort of generally good, but not really take into account combos. That kind of means they're a bit more simple. Like the recommendations are going to be more simple than what you'd otherwise be doing if you're not following them.
Feels like at some point you're going to need some sort of nested recommendation system. It's like, well, I'm kind of doing bleed stuff, so you go to the sub menu for bleed recommendations.
I'm less certain about that because I kind of don't want to get into the thing of actually telling you what your build should be. That's a little bit different there.
Maybe like more sorting methods for the.
I think it should keep it
show
simple.
me all the gems.
honestly.
Oh.
I think it should just be
Because there's a lot that are only in
As
there that
simple
are
as
never
possible.
recommended right at this point.
There are, yes, there are.
It's going to be an interesting challenge you guys have set yourselves to make enough supports there. So another thing that you managed to challenge that you set yourselves, and I always wonder, like, why did you do this to yourselves, was Spectres. So originally those were planned to be in for launch, but obviously Spectres are a whole can of worms. It's, hey, let's just give players access to every monster. Also, we've made so many new monsters.
Yeah.
We're talking about all the broken. There's going to be some broken in there, I promise you. And there's going to be some stuff we have to change.
I mean, they've done, but I mean, effectively, what the
Give people
time
respect
between
and-
early access and this was like, okay, let's
give
actually
people
attempt
respect
at least
and
to do
allow
a balance pass of this, and like
some
see if
kind
there's
of
anything
help
that's
to
going to be a
transition their
problem and
build.
adjust numbers
Yeah, but now
accordingly.
you've got to
That's
account
the
all
main thing
those
they gotta
support
do.
gems on all those monsters.
Yes,
And
well,
just-
this is an interesting thing, isn't it? The support
Shotgun
gems work,
rapid
the
fire
support gems
these
work on
changes
them.
as people find
And
super broken things.
like what the hell's that going
I
to do?
think that's fine.
Yeah, like it's impossible to completely know, but yeah, like look, I mean, there's probably definitely some some dark secrets
Like
lying in what
attribute
kind of
stacking
specters
with
a
Hand
mix
of Wisdom in
support
action,
gems
I
are
think it
gonna
was a
do.
And
complete
monsters have
mistake to
skills
let
now.
that
It's not
run
like
wild.
POE 1 where it's
Exactly.
like just a bunch of zombies
Like-
just doing default attack. It's like everything
They need
pretty
to
much
do
has a
something
skill
with that
now at this point. So.
Pretty quick.
But the great thing about it is we got to leverage all that work again for the
True.
beast taming as well.
I mean, if they actually
and of
properly
course, the
nerfed
difference
it,
there is that you also get
there's
the
gonna be a lot
mods
of
from
upset
the
people.
thing that
Oh,
you
yeah.
tamed. So that's
Yeah.
going to be
Rip that Band-Aid
Warriors,
off now.
ground
That's what
effects.
they
Yeah,
need to do.
exactly.
Spawn death explosions.
No, you've got a whole nother ruckus of potential interactions. So we'll see what happens there.
We've done nice specific player versions of those things for which specifically when you tame the beast, so that they're not sitting there spamming skills in your hideout and all of that.
Good. Yes. So
But also, like, there actually are player versions of the mods that Res can get, like, so that we can balance them if we need to.
Yeah.
Because some of that stuff would be ridiculous if you had it yourself. So basically, we still have it sort of work. It mostly works the same way, but there will just be numbers tweaked to the player versions, and the same works as well for the what do you call it? The ritual sacrifice.
Headhunter, yeah.
Headhunter and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's player versions of the monster mods for that.
yeah, this new attention to these things is going to benefit like the pre-existing stuff like Headhunter and that as well. Yeah, that's insane.
There's a new. Probably should let people discover it. There's a new unique
on.
charm that possesses you with a random Asmeri spirit as well, and so you get the demons and the stats. And those technically also have player versions too, but actually, not to necessarily make things worse, to make things better, because monsters are balanced to fight player life and monster life, not in the same universe. So actually what we've done is all the things you steal that are monsters and the monster skills, like the explosions and the summoning bears and all that, we've actually specifically balanced them way up to be more effective against monster. So when you steal them, they're much more powerful actually. Just so they're not just tickling monsters and doing 1% of their life kind of thing.
It was mentioned in chat actually, the whole like Asmeri modifiers and things on stuff that wouldn't go. That wouldn't
I'm just
transfer
saying,
over with the
stuff.
companion system, surely.
No.
That would be.
I'm curious to see if they actually really
We
have
we
it
actually had to
mostly
because
okay.
This is certainly a
I'm not gonna
benefit.
even
Once
say
you have
balanced.
tamed the beast, it is not tradable. And people might immediately be like, oh, so that's sad. Well, the issue is, and as much as you might want some of that, I'm sure you don't want to be carrying around a whole bunch of tame beasts in your inventory all the time. So that every single time you find a good rare, all of a sudden you have to go and...
Because the rumor that finding a rare would
God,
become a thing. Yes, exactly.
It's actually
I
like
didn't
this
think about that.
annoying, in order to make the most money, I have to be constantly thinking about and carrying around tame
But then we
beasts
also
and-
made it so that as soon as you activate a beast, then no one who comes into the instance after that
so
is allowed to
so you
tame it.
can't do
So
any,
we can't
like-
TFT the
Oh.
it's like
Thank
like, there's
you.
a lot
That's
of
what I
thinking
was
about that
like,
stuff
yeah,
in
but
order
now
to make it
people's
so
gonna-
that,
but no, they thought of
It's a
this.
sad thing to
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to have lost, but
Yeah,
it's
Well
just
done.
like,
Well
yeah,
done.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm
Let's
not
go.
signing up
I
for
didn't
that.
even think about that.
Yeah.
The like needing for cheat sheets and
Yeah,
guides
exactly,
and stuff.
right.
Like,
And so you
which
have to be
beats are
really
worth the
careful.
most
You have to be so
currency
careful.
this week.
And then the thing is like it's like we design this thing and then think, oh, trading beasts is going to be fun, but then you realize that the horrific reality
actually.
of what it will turn into. It's like, yeah, okay,
Oh,
well,
no.
you know. But yeah, at least we're thinking about that kind of thing. Like with more experience that we have now, early, so that we don't
That's
run
amazing.
into
That's
those
good.
problems.
That's
Exactly.
really
exactly.
good.
Yeah.
I'm glad we've learned from past issues with that sort of trading.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, talking about some of the other new skills, we had the addition of the rower, which was teased quite some time ago, I think.
Yes.
But you've got it in and working now, and it looks
Yes.
like it's moving around pretty good.
Yes.
and
Yes.
It's obviously you've got like a big downside. If you get knocked off at heavy stun and stuff, you can't use melee from it, so it's for ranged attacks.
Yeah.
But it does seem like one of those things that it's going to be like everyone's going to use or no one's going to use because it's a clear speed machine.
It is a concern. I mean, look, my ideal situation is that you're using it sometimes and not using it other times. Like, if you're using it like during clear, I think it will, like you will definitely want to. But we want to just make sure that we've got like sort of fun things like that, and like it's just a cool fantasy. Like there's stuff like that I just want to get in, and it's like look, if it doesn't work later, if we have to nerf it, I mean, sure, I suppose, but like I want something like that to exist. We believe that it is balanced as much as we can.
You sound very convinced.
Yeah, it's balanced.
Well, as I said earlier, you can probably get builds that get to the point of parrying indefinitely. So you can. That means in theory you can probably get to the point of riding a rower indefinitely.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Again, enough evasion and enough
Yep.
stagger speaking into and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, fundamental question actually. Like, what's its move speed based on? Its own move speed?
The move speed is just your move speed. Like but it's what
without the penalty.
But what you don't get is the penalty for when you
of
attack.
course.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But it's funny though, because like even though it doesn't have a move speed bonus, it feels like you're motoring when you're using it, just because of the fact you don't get that downside anymore. Like you feel like the fastest thing on the planet.
It is
when you're doing.
Yeah, there are other like more mechanical benefits, like it's considered a companion, which is a kind of subclass of minion that we've added, where you can only have one of each one companion base is a keystone for another, but you can only have one of each type. So like you can have a tame beast and a rower with the keystone.
Oh, right, yeah.
But inherently you can only have one companion.
Right, so you can't use a tamed beast if you're using the rower.
Okay,
And then there are
that's-
heaps of
that's-
passives for like if you have a companion, like companions while they're in your presence and all that kind of stuff. Heaps of that stuff around the bottom of the tree.
Yeah, I saw you guys remade the minion damage is player damage node on the tree. It's your companion damage nodes become player damage nodes. And I was like, oh, that looks like
yes,
I'm going to
that
take
too.
that.
Well, so that's the like companion where it's like more the mercenary over to ranger. Huntress is more like yeah, you want your one powerful minion, and benefiting that benefits you, and you benefit it, and there's that
Yeah.
synergy between you and your companions.
So since it is a companion, I like the idea of like balance wise. Maybe it ends up being that you're like map clearing on rollback, and then you get to the boss and you dismount like old school mounted knights who charge in battle and then dismount and fight.
Yep.
So if it ends up like that, that seems like that would be a pretty cool balance for it.
that should be the best way to use it, I believe.
Yeah, because then you gain access to your dodge roll for the boss fight where you need it.
Yeah.
And does the rower then kind of do a bit when you're not on it?
It can attack, but I mean, it's not exactly a huge damage source or anything.
It's
like
certainly better to stay at ranged. It's not the most durable of birds, for sure.
But it acts as a distraction. Maybe
Yeah.
there's some support
I mean, it's a
gems
minion, right? Like it
can do
attacks
things with.
things and does stuff.
Yeah, you can support it with minion supports to make it more durable and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's the one that's like the minion takes 10% of the damage before you do. So sacrificial bird.
Yeah. True.
Poor little guy. So that sounds. I'm looking forward to playing around with that one then. Speaking of new content, 100 new uniques this time. So how many are you aiming for? Kind of in general, is this about really like filling that roster
Well,
out?
we want to have every base type have a unique for the purposes of chance.
Outside of boss uniques.
Outside of boss unique, so we want every base type to have to have a unique that you can chance. And so that was with the eventual goal. One of the things, of course, that we had that was sort of a problem in early access is that because of the way, because when we were designing uniques, we kind of designed them like in order from base type up, just literally because that's the way that like spreadsheets are arranged. It's like we ended up with all the low level uniques first, kind of before the high ones, and it was kind of it's like we didn't see that mistake coming. Like it was kind of stupid because
we thought we'd get
we thought we'd get through them all, right? We were like, okay, we'll get all the uniques, and so we designed them all. It's like, okay, we'll start working on the art, just go down the list. So then we're like, oh crap, now we don't have very many in-game uniques. So this time we're like, okay, we really need to make sure that in-game uniques are a thing. There's way more of them. So the focus really is on making sure there's lots of cool stuff to find. Lots of really chase things that you can get.
Okay, that's really
not.
I like that.
You discovered the sort order changing in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, it does help. But effectively, like you should. This should be a lot better, and like there's lots of cool stuff there.
And we're just gonna keep going with that. By the way, like
of course. Yeah.
100 now, 100 later, 100 next. Just keep going until kind of honestly, we never really stop making uniques. Like especially anyone familiar with Path of Exile 1's history, is every single expansion since the dawn of time has had new uniques added to it. So there's a lot there, and there's going to be a lot here eventually as well.
So then let's talk about the idea of like players seeing a unique and be like, 1x, that's not very good. What do you guys want uniques to be in Path of Exile 2? Like, how powerful should they be? What should they be aiming to do? And how should they affect the rares in that slot?
I mean, it's always a tension because we want rares to still matter. Like, we don't want just your character to be just only full of uniques. So it really is like the role can evolve. So at the start of the game, they're really supposed to be more about that. So the earlier game uniques are supposed to do two things. One of them is when you find them, they should be powerful for a little while.
Yeah.
But then also they have a some kind of combo thing that you might be able to do with them at end game. But we don't always know exactly what that might be. Like, I mean, we've got sort of ideas, obviously, but it's like we don't necessarily design them to say, okay, this unique definitely has like an in-game build that's going to be actually strong to do with it. And that's because you're kind of putting in things where, later on some other mechanic might come along or something might happen, and then people find an interesting interaction, and that's when the unique kind of comes into its own. And I mean, that's the same as like Magic card design philosophy, that kind of stuff. You just put in like kind of weird stuff and sort of, maybe you find something. But obviously it can mean that like, when people see a new unique, they might they dismiss it. But then one day they might also be paying vast amounts for it if it becomes a meta build. So, you could, but I feel like a game has to have that stuff in it in order to feel like there's lots of interesting ways to experiment, because like, it's like the feeling of being the first person to discover some new interaction is an amazing thing, and then when people see something that it like feels smart, and it's like, if we don't have uniques that just take chances and do weird shit, we'll never have that kind of stuff happen. So
when we're designing a unique, we don't think about what's the value going to be.
Yeah,
we're not even coming out of it going like, this is going to be really expensive or this is going to be really cheap.
Well, in some cases, well, you knew what you were doing with that Herald unique.
I don't remember the charm but that's the thing. Are you aiming for the honestly, there's someone said the other day, they were like, a successful unique is one that should be divisive, and I was like, I agree for the most part. But not every unique should fill that role. Some should just be clearly, this is powerful, I want it for sure. It is going to be on my build.
Chase.
And others are like, what can I do with this now? And then others are just like, we don't know if anyone's going to do anything with this, throw it in. And sometimes it doesn't get anything happen with it for 3 years. But we don't know that necessarily. It's like, let's just take an experiment and throw it in there and let the players figure that out.
Yeah, I feel like you're with a lot of these uniques, you're designing a question. You're just like, I'm going to put something that's a little weird. Maybe someone will figure that out.
Well, I think as Frishi called it, it's a puzzle piece, right?
Yeah.
It's just a piece in the puzzle. You put it there, and maybe someone will complete the puzzle or half of it. Maybe not. And then others where it's just like, yeah, this is powerful. Like,
I mean, there are definitely some chase uniques in this. In this
Yeah,
situation.
100%.
Oh, definitely.
So on
I mean, that
Chase
deep,
uniques, then we've
the
obviously had some,
deepest
like,
tower,
pretty
that
crazy
thing looks
ones
insane.
so far. Where do they want to be in terms of like how hard they are to get for players? Because at that point, you do need to consider like how expensive they end up being.
It's really tricky. So whenever we're looking, so if there's a unique that's broken, I guess there's two responses, right? One of them is make it rare enough that you only get the brokenness after the point when you're at the point where you're supposed to get that, right?
Yeah.
Which is to say, like, you know, post pinnacle boss type,
You
like
win.
level of character
Yes.
development, right? And then the other response would be nerf the actual unique, and it honestly is a case by case. Like, you know, so I think that like Temporalis, for example, actually got nerfed in both ways. The actual unique was nerfed a little bit, I believe, although I don't believe it's maybe as much as what players might expect. But then also you've got okay, whatever. But also you know, we have made that one rarer.
It's still pretty crazy.
Oh,
in
it's
the
still
rise.
crazy for sure,
Yes.
for sure. But the thing is like you want to chase stuff, right? So therefore you don't want to just go nerfing everything into the ground the moment that it's good. So therefore that one becoming rarer, I think, was the right answer there, because it was way too common. Just due to the
We had also the issues with like I mean, there were three real issues. One is darkness at one point bypassed honor loss. So all of a sudden a no-hit run, it wasn't a no-hit run.
Yeah.
You had guard bypass honor loss, so once again a no-hit run is not a no-hit run. And then there was just like, well, how can anything hit you if you can kill literally everything on your screen in one frame, right? So those three problems, and so as the balance issue of not everything surviving for more than one frame due to a subset of builds, and those other two things go away, it becomes a lot rarer in itself. In that it is much harder to
That
acquire,
sounds
require like very
really
specific and
cool.
ideally high skill
Hopefully
gameplay.
things got
and then
nerfed
there's just
like
like,
they
well,
should.
it also
Just
was
saying.
just too common, the relic that yielded it.
I mean, the expectation was that, because this is a hard challenge, most of the time when people try, they will fail. But the reality is once you get the ability to do it, you just trade for that thing and get it every time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of meant that the
Printing.
rarity kind of didn't work like we thought. And, now that should be better in both ways.
Again, for the POE 1 players comparison, like it was far more common than Original Sin. Which was the same role in POE 1's version of the Sanctum, just to give us some sort of comparison.
It's just much easier to actually reliably do it.
And it shouldn't have been that much more common.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. So crafting really surprised me. You guys announced, I thought we'd maybe get like one little thing, maybe you'd do something with essences or something, but we've got essences coming out a lot more, it looks like. You've got, because you're violent, you can
So greater
integrate
essences,
now.
greater essences are going to be much easier to get. One thing we didn't mention in the video is that like omens are way more common, because I believe you made the change that there's an omen in every
2.5 times more common, I think.
Yeah, than every
Sweet.
thing.
Oh, wow,
so,
that's
you've got stuff
awesome.
like that. Like,
Okay, that's
we certainly knew that we needed to do more with what crafting stuff, and so we're kind of like, well, let's just make sure we're at least adding, 3 or 4 things, like new things to. And,
Every ritual will now have at least one omen in the window.
Okay.
So you can know upon finishing a ritual, you're like, what is the omen I'm going to get, and hope it's a good one. And
Love it.
maybe most often it's not, but
But yeah, the greater essences, obviously, the Varlorb thing makes it
Really good.
much more common. There's more sources of them with the map and everything like that. So that'll be happening more. And then, of course, there's the improvements to things like the runes. We've got higher level mods that you can get from them. There's like a ton more runes. There's like, we just wanted to expand the set, and having the kind of like, the niche mods that you can get and craft onto things, like it just needed more options. And it's sort of interesting because like some people say, oh, you don't have crafting in PoE 2 because we don't have a crafting bench, but it's like we actually have a huge number of crafting options, and the crafting being good kind of comes down to like how many of these kind of weird systems are there and how they can interact. But we just have to be really careful because you don't want to get to the point where ground items no longer matter. Like and I think POE 1 kind of basically did get to that point for various reasons, where like people aren't caring about what's on the ground nearly as much. So we still want to make sure with every change we're making that they still use the ground stuff, that you're still excited for things on the ground, and so that's like a really careful balancing act, because they do directly contravene each other. Like the better stuff you can craft, the less important the ground stuff is. So it's a really sort of subtle balancing act. But I think that the stuff we've added here will definitely push things in a way where you feel like there's more smart things that you can do to kind of improve your stuff.
Yeah, well, I think done right, and what you're doing is making sure that the ground items do matter with each of these crafting systems. So you had that fundamental change where you can't just turn an item back into a white item.
Exactly, and that's very important. One of the biggest ones, I think. And that kind of then unlocks the ability to do more. And so the great thing about the socketables as a crafting system is that they don't compromise the ground at all, because they don't, they're on top of the stuff that you can get on the ground. So that's very good. But when it comes to the kind of the base mods, we do want to retain, that an item has. We do want to retain, for the most part, the kind of thing of like that part of the item generation is random. It's just that, it's just that on top of that, you get the more deterministic things that you can add in addition to. And then when you do it that way, it works really well. So socketables work really well as a crafting system for that reason.
Well, so on that topic, we've had this. Talking to you, it's like you're always saying to me that like, this rune system is our crafting bench, but players don't keep asking for a bench anyway.
Right.
So obviously there's like a branding issue or a functionality gap.
It is funny, because I was actually saying the other day that like if we had literally had that system be identical, except that the way it was themed was that there's a crafting bench you go to and craft extra mods on the items, which literally be functionally the same, I think, and required materials that are effectively the runes that you get. Then I feel like people would be thinking that we've got a crafting bench. But yeah, ultimately that is that the rune system, the socketables are what replaced the crafting bench in the POE 1 style crafting bench.
And I guess it must have also been like with that initial kind of output of them was just not as many options as
100% as well. So that is the issue, and that's because they were relatively late in development. So now we're just sort of expanding that, and we'll continue to add more socketables probably with every release, right? Like we'll add more categories of them, or do different things. It's like expanding the kind of type of mods, because there is a thing where it's the more like in the base mod pool for items, there can only be things that are really fundamental, and so anything that's kind of out there, we don't want to put in the base mod pool, because then you end up with this sort of situation where you get items that have got random shit you don't care about. Like the crafting is where you want to have all of the kind of stuff that's like very build specific. And so adding more mods to that pool so that you can do that is the right idea.
Why is it that you can't?
And I think it's really
socket
is
and rune some things, like non-attack weapons, for example.
Well,
it was more just a choice for asymmetry, where we just wanted these things to feel different. There was also just like a little bit of a like, in the future, we'll add some system where we can do something else there. And so just not having everything be completely identical. Much like how, the quality on those weapons works differently, where it affects the skill as opposed to just, base damage.
I do think it is something that we should be probably looking into sooner rather than later, though.
Because the asymmetry things, it's good to have like not everything be super homogeneous, but because we're talking about the importance of it being that extra layer of control over your items, which you just don't have if you're doing spellcaster.
Maybe we'll add an Arcanist's bench and theme it that way for the.
I can't, all right, you forced my hand. I have to bring this up now. Can we get some sort of like cohesive, all-in-one bench for disenchanting, salvaging, selling for gold, Arcanist benching at endgame? I get in the campaign having these things be separate.
Thank you, Ziggy. Let's
go. So much clicky.
You're not happy enough with them just being next to each other, putting them next to each other, and you know. No. All right. Well, that's all right. I'll think about that one.
Okay, good. I planted the seeds at least.
Yeah. Okay.
Done my part.
I want to see chat. I gotta see what chat.
There's ways. I like the sounds of that.
Well, at least for endgame, like
that's
I do.
Everybody's going crazy right now in chat. Yeah, let's go. Dude.
Having it that you can just like
base Ziggy. Let's go.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, people are putting their NPCs within each other's personal space anyway, so the law goes out the window at that point.
For sure.
So we've also got Fractured, crafted via an orb from the cleansed monsters. How rare are those?
How do you quantify rarity like that? They drop from the monsters. I can't remember the exact number, but like I think I was kind of saying like 1 per biome, which is the kind of total blob of cleansed monsters. But then that obviously does get affected by things like pack size and all that on top of that.
So is that like 5 maps or something?
Well, it depends on how many of them you kill as corrupted.
Yeah,
because
so-
because the ones you didn't
Yeah.
cleanse while you were getting to the Nexus, those are the ones that then become cleansed. So you kind of have to choose, like, when you go into a biome, am I going to beeline straight for the Nexus and then cleanse everything, or am I going to just fight them all as corrupted to get the rewards from that? So you're kind of choosing one reward or the other based on what you decide to run.
Okay, so you can kind of leave the Nexus for last if you want to.
Yes, if you want to
use it to try and get more fractured orbs.
Well,
it's the other way around. Do Nexus first, then it cleanses all the maps, and then now you can get the most chance at fractured orbs, or you can fight them corrupted before going to the Nexus if you want to get the rewards that the corrupted maps have.
And we have like,
okay.
for example, the corrupted bosses have their own uniques now.
Yeah, so you're gonna want
There's a bunch of new modifiers and
Yeah.
how they, so there's like
Yeah, yeah.
random corrupted strongbox kind of things and all of that
Clever.
stuff. So you,
Yeah.
you kind of really are like, I'm gonna have a look at the mods.
right.
I like
Are
this. I'm gonna
there-
do this, then this, then this, then the Nexus, and then I'm gonna do the rest cleansed.
Does the cleansed boss have its own uniques as well?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
It does
Not yet.
have.
Okay.
It guarantees a fractured orb though as well.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So you can
and-
get the boss. will
So
come.
and you'll display if you hover over the map and it says like contains, I can't remember his name. Then you run it and kill it, you will get a fractured orb. So at least you will know that will drop one.
Yeah, yeah.
So with the fractured orbs being a way of fracturing, that's obviously super powerful for crafting. Are there any fractured items dropping pre-fractured? I quite liked that.
I think we went with no in the end.
Yeah,
we
not
were going to do
currently.
it, but then we decided not to. But we might do it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so an extra add-on. Is there a particular reason for it or thought process for that?
There just kind of wasn't anything that really fit that exactly. I think
At some
main
point,
thing.
you'll want some new thing to
Yeah,
go in
probably,
that, like this.
probably.
This feels
Personally,
right
I
there.
would rather just drop more orbs, honestly, and let people choose how they want to
right.
use them.
I like it from the perspective of dropped items matter. Like when you're
yeah,
seeing
but
a rare,
they kind
and
of
then you're
already
like,
do.
"Ooh."
They kind of do here anyway because
they do,
like
because you use
because
it.
you need that
Yeah.
as the thing of the fracture.
makes
So it's
sense.
kind of not necessary. I think. Yeah.
There's other little subtle things, like for example, the cleansed monsters within cleansed maps can't drop equipment as a little thing. So they have much higher. Obviously, they're dropping things more like waystones, tablets, currency.
Okay.
They don't get to drop any of the armor or anything. So they're more like currency sources. As like an interesting
Yeah,
subtle thing.
if
Because
you want more currency, then play cleansed maps.
So we're gonna have a lot more essences, a lot more omens, potentially ability to get.
Please tell me
fractured,
rarity does not
recombination with the
affect
new, more accessible
currency.
at low and mid tiers.
Rarity
Design
does not
4.0.
affect currency.
yeah.
This is yes, recombination's certainly undergone some changes. This is a huge leap forwards compared to 0.1's crafting.
For sure.
So was it just about that you had to establish that really like humble baseline for crafting so that you could then go crazy with it like this?
Honestly, I mean, look, on some level, it can just be, like you need an economy. You need to see how things evolve. We just don't want to do too much at once. I mean, although this may seem like quite a lot. I mean,
It does, yeah.
but the thing is like, but in terms of the initial system, it's like if we'd have had all that at the start,
Yeah.
I think that we wouldn't have been like, we'll put it this way: it is hard to take the stuff away, so that's why we have to be a little bit careful as we do this.
Yeah,
thing.
I guess you needed to kind of assess the fundamental things like the no scours, the no
Yeah, 100%,
bolts, and stuff like
100%.
that as well, because
Yeah.
then you can have a better idea of how to build off that, which I'm super excited for. Crafting.
But of course, and if
actual
you know
crafting.
us, like more, there'll be more. There's always going to be more.
Oh yeah.
so.
Oh, you're gonna have a new craft for every league, right? That's how it is these days.
Oh yes,
I expect a crafting system for every league. Thank
Yep.
you.
something like that.
That's somewhat actually our intention. So
yeah.
I love it. Love it. Perfect.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
So let's talk
Pretty
about
cool. I like it.
Endgame then, because that had some humble origins as well with the initial implementation of POE 2's Endgame. Obviously trying some new things, being a bit experimental, not necessarily just wanting to copy POE 1's Endgame. But how far of your vision was 0.1's Endgame? Was it what you want?
I would say that the main problem that we had is there wasn't enough overlapping axes of randomness, as we call them, where effectively you need to have it so that when you go into a map, there's just chances for random shit occurring, and then that random shit like might happen alongside some other random shit, and then now the thing together is like a new scenario. So I mean, effectively,
Random
like
shit squared.
yeah, exactly, right. So let's like if you look at what we actually added here in terms of like encounters, if you will, whatever that means to you, like we've added kind of more than 40, probably something approaching 50 encounters, and that's if you count things like each rogue exile is a separate one, and each spirit's a different one, and things like that, right? So those are the things. But the big difference between the ones we had before and the ones we have now is that most of these ones can overlap with other things. So you have a situation where you've got the Asmeri Wisp that like happens to infect the unique boss of the area, and then that leads to a combat situation that you haven't had to deal with before, or then like you've got some essence thing that like or like oh crap, the this other wisp like caused the thing to turn into a boss that then it's just like it's all that stuff combining, or like what happens when this goes with a with a unique strongbox, and it's like all that combining stuff, and that's what leads to the situation where you've got an exponential explosion of like possible combat situations, and then sometimes you just run into stuff that you've never seen before because of that, because of this combined in some interesting way. And that's something that definitely PoE 1 has got very well, because it's got so many of these things that have been added over time. And it's also something that we took care to make sure that each league specifically did. So what PoE 2 lacked was, I think, that. And so that will mean, I think, that the end game is overall just much more engaging. Now, obviously, we're going to be adding more content and more of the other stuff, but fundamentally, it's like it was specifically more of that type of stuff that we needed to do. And honestly, I don't think we've even got enough yet. Like, we want even more. We'll keep on adding that stuff, but it needed to become a focus. And I think part of the reason is that when we're first working on the end game, it's like we need to come up with the big ticket items, right? Like, what are the the league things, and like the maps, and we need to come up with all that stuff. And so it's the little detaily kind of things that kind of a little bit require a bit more like time and stuff to work on, even though they're actually like relatively efficient to make. Like, we can make a lot of them when we do actually sit down and design them, because they're like making a new strongbox. Like, sure, it's work, but it doesn't take like that long, if you know what I mean. But it is. But it is that stuff that really adds all the flavor and kind of interest. So we'll just be continuing to do that through the game. And I mean, even yesterday we were having a conversation about like making it so more of the maps, even just like regular maps, have more interesting just little things that happen in them and stuff like that. Like more like what the campaign has.
Love that.
So we haven't like got there yet, but like through early access, we'll definitely be just like introducing more of those little details everywhere, so that you get the interesting things happening.
Yeah, so a bit like those exploration mechanics in campaigns.
100%, yeah, exactly. That's just, we just want to make sure that you feel that same way through the end game as well,
and with the leagues as well.
Yeah,
and like, there's really only so much randomness that can occur within a breach in a map, and so they will end up feeling ultra repetitive. Whereas, and again, in PoE 1, you had the boss that could spawn occasionally. You had 5 different factions, things like that. And it is very much our intention to expand on all the leagues, to have way more random things occurring. Mini bosses
I
spawning,
really want to see
whatever else. I have a whole set. I don't want to spoil them all yet, because that's a whole later thing. But definitely want to expand on all that.
I'd like to see Breach just
even
reworked in this.
Expedition only has the one boss. It had 4 in the predecessor. Like, we need to get back to having all of that depth and all of combat and all of those mechanics, and it'll help hugely, while also making sure we're adding new ones, of course. But what we definitely have learned is that our minimum standard for new ones is going to it should include all of these things from the get-go.
Right.
Otherwise, we're just signing ourselves up for like, here's 1,000 things we need to improve. It'd be nice to actually get some of them finished. So that's going to be a goal going forward for sure.
But I think it is where our type of design shines.
To be like a new one.
Adding content is no longer a process of like, we work on a thing and then the players get to play, it gets into a situation where like adding content has more value than just the content itself, because it adds to everything else too. And so that kind of makes it feel like the world gets like larger in much larger proportion than what you have. And so like, it's an n squared thing where like, the square of all the stuff we add. So that, like, basically it'll feel like it's ramping up in terms of interest as we add more content, rather than just feeling like you're just continuing like rather than every league feeling like you just add the same amount. It'll feel like it gets even bigger each time.
Yeah, like when you add Asmeri Wisps, that's not just about adding that. It interacts with all the other things that already exist that it can go ahead and affect. So that's tackling one of the, ultimately, I think the biggest things is just that, like, the core basic mapping of running an empty map was boring, and that's never what you want to be, obviously. So like, some of the issues there, I guess, as well, that were exacerbated by that problem was the fact that the maps were so big and that there were so many of them. Obviously, that's getting a lot better with the maps themselves becoming much more interesting. But it seems like this corruption and cleansing mechanic is breaking up and giving you something to progress through as you move towards the next tower or next boss or next other mechanic. I mean, I guess there's always something on your screen that you're pushing towards, it looks like.
Well, we want to try and, like, honestly, I don't even think we're even quite there yet. Like, we really want to make it so that you feel like there's lots of quests, as it were, in endgame, like not necessarily directly in the form of like, here is a quest objective, but like that you sort of have this feeling of like, there's like different stuff that you're like that you feel like, there's a thing, like exactly right. You need to ideally, like, every time you do one of those, it's like there's another one just on the horizon that you're thinking about. So if we can achieve that, then we'll have succeeded. But it'll need to keep adding stuff, right? Like, just more and more things, because obviously you need to have enough just core there to be able to get to the point of it doesn't feel like you're just repeating the same thing over and over again as well.
it seemed like this like explorable world map thing that you did for Endgame, being like looking like a physical actual map, was really wanting us to explore, but that wasn't really much of that. So you kind of
Well, I mean, ideally we can. It's just about content, really. At that point, you just need to add more and more, and we'll keep on adding more. And this
We'll
this
100% get more. Of
yeah, and 0 to 0, I think, goes a long way to improving that for sure.
So with the corruption mechanic now, you're going to see some corruption on the map, and you're going to want to go there because it's a system that you can interact with.
Exactly.
And it's your skill points.
Yes.
So you're unlocking skill points from that, which means you're unlocking more of the Atlas tree earlier on.
Your first Nexus, you have to run at a tier 1 map, and it will drop 2 skill points. It'll give you your first 2 skill points.
Awesome.
And then you're like, all right, where's my next Nexus? That's where I'm going for my next 2. And then your next one, and you have to do them 1 tier higher every time. So the second one, you got to do it tier 2 to get your skill points and so on and so forth.
It's not
And
just,
that's gonna feel
it's
better.
not just grind 10 maps.
yeah, that was terrible.
Good. I love it.
So yeah, it is very much like, let's go and clear these corrupted Nexus. And then it's like, well, and there's the whole mechanic around it. But yeah, if you want to just like I want to get my points as fast as possible, just go Nexus to Nexus to Nexus and get as many as you can. If you're like, oh, I can't see any Nexus, maybe go to a tower to reveal more, and then, which you're doing way less frequently, mind you, thank goodness.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a lot more objective driven as opposed to just, again, random grind and random exploration. There's at least, and you should be seeing a pretty decent chunk of unique maps.
I was going to ask,
I call them
It's
unique
funny,
maps.
it's funny because I was pointing out to Matt the other day that the distinction between a unique map and a normal, like, there is no distinction anymore. We shouldn't even look at it that way. Like, it should be that every map is like unique in some sense.
There's not a unique
there's not a
system.
unique map.
We do have an icon for it because they are kind of in a different echelon.
Yeah.
But yes, technically, unique map is a name that's a holdover from POE 1.
Yeah, because you can use mods with them with Waystones anyway,
these-
so it doesn't. There's no actual reason for a unique to be any different than a normal map.
You can craft
It's
it
just-
and
it's-
enhance
it
it.
really
yeah,
just-
actually,
it
yeah.
really just comes down to how rare they are relative to other things, right? So
And how rare are they? How
I mean,
maybe
again,
in
so hard to
terms of
explain.
player screen.
yeah, I mean, look, as I said, I think
How many
that
screens?
How many? I had the numbers, I just don't remember them.
Well, I mean, as I said, they should be common enough that you feel like there's always some kind of objective you're excited about on the screen, right?
Honestly, more common than I was initially comfortable with, and then after trying it, I was like, okay, actually, this is like, this is reasonable. So
Yeah, I feel like you initially probably want them to be common enough that you're like almost getting tired of those map layouts, so then you're incentivized to add more.
the good thing is, by the way, by adding more here, we didn't just keep them the same commonality as the 2 that existed.
Yep.
Like they are just more common. It's not like part of the reason it wasn't as common before is because there was only 2, and that would have just been repetitive and boring. One of the other restrictions is that like the Vault of Kamasa was restricted to the Val City biome, so to speak, and that was one of the Citadel biomes. That's like one of the rarest and latest,
Yes.
So it's like we've not only made that more common within that biome, but a lot of the new ones, in fact, all of the new ones aren't restricted to those city biomes, and thus they are appearing more frequently. And some of them are like, oh, you want deserts because they give you the essence map, or you want the mountain because they can give you this and that, So like,
Ah.
Yeah, see,
ideally
I want
there's a
them
little
to
bit of
have
just like you see the
bigger
edge of the desert, and
biomes,
you're like, oh
too.
my god, please.
Yes. Okay. So that's what I was
rather
going to say.
than,
Is like
like,
idea of exploration.
like
is
that
I felt
feeling
there needed to be something
that Mark
biomes
just
where,
said,
like, you're actually
but-
pushing into a biome because there's that one node that
huge
like,
biome so you can
affected your drop
farm
slab.
specific
Obviously
items.
that's not much,
The,
but-
the one that was the Shattered Lakes, for example, as you can probably imagine, only spawns in the water biome. And so there's a little bit of like, and so does Untainted Paradise, and so does one other. So there are actually 3
okay.
special maps that can spawn only in the water.
Good.
So go to the water.
And otherwise, how easy is it to find? You said there was an icon. Obviously, you kind of have an idea of what biomes. Is it like also something that's pretty visually
there's art there,
spottable on the map?
Yeah, so the one we
looks
looked at with the
interesting.
one we looked at with the megaliths, which had all the storm and lightning. Well, on the map, it has a bunch of storm and lightning.
Cool.
So yes.
That's awesome. Cute. That's great. So we mentioned the Atlas passive tree, and you're seemingly, I think, you're getting better progression of that. But definitely an issue I had with it personally was that it felt very top heavy, both for the core one and also especially for the league mechanics, where like the league mechanics, you don't get points until you kill the bosses, which to me feels like the end of it for most players.
That kind of was the original pitch of that, and I wouldn't say that's really changing here, but there is more we want to do with that, and I think that it could be made better, but 0 to 0 isn't getting a change there to that side. But in terms of the actual core Atlas, it definitely is. You know, like you're getting that earlier. There's more. It's a bigger tree. There's more interesting stuff.
There's subtle changes to getting them in the sense that, like, for example, the difficulty 0 pinnacle bosses are way lower life.
Well, that's actually
now.
good. That's actually a very good point. So yes, difficulty 0 is now like half the life that it had before, and
Okay.
so that's like a pretty
But
substantial
difficulty
change.
4 is currently the same
Yeah.
as what it was before. So it's same top end, but like easy, more accessible for more people at the bottom end.
Right.
And then also because of like, you know, due to the reliquary key working the way it does, all pinnacle bosses can drop all uniques at all difficulties, except they are like substantially less common at difficulty 0, but you feel way less bad for running them at that point now.
Right.
So again, it's just opening that up to a lot more people to farm, and it's not so much dependent on if your build can't do difficulty 4, you're not really a viable character kind of mindset.
So much more easy onboarding for those.
Which will
pinnacle
give you your
bosses now.
first sets of points certainly a lot easier now. That being said, not if you're playing the most broken build of all time, because you're probably nerfed into the ground, let's be real. So with your new build, we'll have to see how that balance
with
goes.
the
Yeah,
new
there we
broken
go.
build,
Yeah,
that's
well,
sure.
yeah, one of those
New
specs. One of those
Spectre
specs.
builds.
Let's go.
Anyway, the ultimate point being, yeah, you're certainly going to get those initial set of points easier than before. However, yeah, you are right that something isn't quite right there still, and I do need to kind of explore.
We are going to do more with this like later. We've talked about this issue, but we didn't have time to do anything about it in 020 as much. But certainly by the end of early access, I think that system will probably look quite different.
Part of it also, as we were talking about before, adding all those extra bits of content to the leagues, it'll help give more interest to the trees and more nodes we can add to actually invest into. Because if you think about a breach, there's only so much you can actually modify right now. Right, there's a level of radius, speed, density of monsters, and like sure, there's the standard stuff with monsters, but like you can only go so far when you don't have all of that depth of different factions and different bosses and different mini bosses and different itemizations or additional things with catalysts and whatnot. Like you are quite limited in how expansive a tree can be, and so it'd be nice to get those things in and also kind of look at the trees at the same time and reevaluate how that works, just so we can have them be more interesting while we're at it.
Right.
But yeah.
And now with the pinnacle bosses, if you're like halfway through a level, you don't need to. Oh, maybe I'll do that when I get the rest of the level now.
Yes, that was a good change. So yeah, as he was saying, as you were saying, you no longer gain experience or lose experience anymore from Pinnacle, so you could just feel free to do them anytime. Yeah, I think that's just a straight up upgrade, and I think that it's not like you were playing Pinnacle bosses for experience.
No.
So yeah, it does the downside is not an issue really. Yeah.
It also is the nice thing of really just keeping, like, if we add more leagues, for example, and we end up with a Domain of Timeless Conflict problem, where it's just like rotations to max level, like ultra
Yes,
ultra
we
quick.
don't want that type of
Like,
content to
at
be the
least
way you
now
level.
we can say like
Yeah.
maps are the way you level, like
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, you might get some sort of unique map rotation here, and maybe not, I don't know, it depends. But hopefully we can avoid that. But either way, like it's just really you're playing in maps to level, and that's what you're doing.
It's
and there's
not,
something
that's not
nice about
itemized
that.
content, right?
At least,
though?
at,
It's not
le-
something
at least until we've added Delve.
Well, sure. I mean, there will be future parallel in-game systems. Right?
Confirmed.
Yeah, no.
I know you want to do something with
Yes,
Delve.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you're a fan. You're a fan. I mean, you made the end game look like Delve, so
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been a long-term problem, and one we need to properly apply to the other game as well. That the whole like not can't do my content because I got a level, and I'm like, even if you're only like 15% in, you're like, oh,
Yeah. It's
gotta-
just not as bad.
Yeah.
It's just not as bad in POE 1 because the leveling is faster.
Yeah, it's
so
true.
it hasn't been on our radar as much.
So speaking of like map progression, there's been some fundamental changes there. You're telling me that now you can no longer drop maps below your current level of map.
It's correct. So yes, you no longer get if you're playing a T5 map,
Amazing.
you're only going to get T5 maps, or if there's a boss there, a T6 map. But we've also smoothed the way the whole progression works. So we've actually the map drops are way less random now entirely.
Wow.
When you kill the last rare in
That's
the map,
insane.
that has a it can affect. At T1, that was a 100% chance to drop another map of the same tier. And then as you go up the tiers, you can still sustain that using Waystone chance. So effectively, it's de-randomized that a lot. And then there are several ways that you can get upgrades. So in terms of like going up the tiers. So one of them is that when you kill a boss, that's a guaranteed +1 upgrade. Then of course you can still cube them up, 3-to-1 recipe to go up a level, or you can run it corrupted. And if you're running a corrupted map, then because it drops the same tier, that's like a sort of guaranteed. When I say corrupt, I mean the one that
Varlorb corrupting up plus
corrupting up +1. That lets you do the run them the same level as well. So you've kind of got those 3 options, but it's much more intentional now. It's like if you're going up maps, it's like you're deciding, okay, this is a thing I am doing. You don't just kind of have that like it doesn't just happen. So it's kind of supposed to make the jump like. If you're just looking to sustain, you can do that, pretty much guaranteed. And unless you're dying more than the number of times you've got portals, which is obviously the thing now. Now that you can go through portals again, the sustain is going to be a lot easier if you are dying. But then it's like once you've achieved that, it's like okay, you effectively can sustain forever. Like the cases where people just drop off the bottom and have issues should be like way less common.
Ultimately, it's way less random, way more deterministic. And ultimately, you can, as long as you are able to do the not die all the time, you will sustain that tier forever.
Right.
Assuming you can roll enough, a high enough mod count, and there is a boss here. I'm going to go up a tier.
Yeah.
And you go for the boss, you kill the boss, you go up a tier.
And if you
and then you sustain that tier forever as long as you can do the difficulty. It's just very clean.
And if you're adding more mods, which you do need to be doing to continue to maintain 100%.
I don't know.
Ability
they did say
to go up tiers.
You can just
and if you're doing it early, you're getting more maps than what other people are getting, which means you can do cubing as well. Like it's just kind of like it just much more effectively gets the thing where good players can advance at the right speed, normal players don't fall off the bottom of the curve. It kind of solves all of those issues without, but also you're not going to have just like hordes of low level waystones that you don't need as well. So
there are still you can get to the highest tiers relatively quickly. You have to prove you're good enough, your character's good enough, but if you're doing it, you get there, right? It's pretty quick, and you can take it at your own leisure as well, and that's completely fine. So it's not like, oh, we've made it way longer to get to tier 15. Like, none of that is really the case. It's just that before you could luck into getting to tier 15 quickly, with some level of, biasing the luck, of course. Or you could just be like, what the heck, I'm like constantly running out and have a really bad time.
Right.
And so now it's just way, way more like predictable, and honestly, it probably has way more of an impact on the sustain problem, which we didn't really, which we talked about, which is the respawning. I would argue this thing has like way, way, way more impact on map sustain than the respawning does. I mean, obviously, if they're paired, then they relate.
You need both because because the guaranteed drop comes from the final rare. So if you were just dying, you would never get it. So the respawning is necessary in order to make it so that that's going to happen for players who and obviously as it gets more difficult, and you get less portals, you start to get to the point where you're going to run into trouble. But if you're a good player, you should be able to get up into the top and sustain very well.
Yep.
You mentioned the idea of maps dropping magic by default.
Yes.
Is that something you're still doing, or?
I believe it is. But no, actually, wait. But there wasn't a concern about that, which I wanted to talk to you about later.
Maybe not.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later because the concern was raised that I think is valid. So we were going to make it so that maps drop magic and above, but there might be issues. So we'll discuss that later on.
Well,
non-decided.
Yeah,
undecided. Yeah.
Undecided. Yeah.
You thought it was decided. I just
Got a week left.
Yeah, we've got a week left. It's fine.
Still figuring. It sounds like much more deterministic progression
But
if
yes,
you're
that's
able to
the main
prove
thing.
the power that you have.
That's the main thing.
It just should be, am I strong enough to do this? Yes, I can do it.
Right.
Not, am I lucky enough to do this, and am I strong enough to do this?
Great.
One of those axes, get out of here.
Love it. So we've got rogue exiles populating the maps now. How common are these guys, especially with unique, since you get their unique guaranteed? I love that. The whole...
It's 1 in 8%, 1 in 12.5 to start with, but of course Atlas Tree be Atlas Tree. So you can speak into that. And
is there like a map modifier for that or something to guarantee it? Or something
there
like that?
are. I think in this case, this one is the exception, whereas you can get normally guaranteed of the other things. We wanted the exiles to be one that you can't just guarantee all the time.
They don't always have uniques.
Yeah.
But when they do, they're using them. The AI is very cool, like how it works.
I mean, they can have 0, 1, 2. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from having uniques in every slot.
What?
But like,
oh my goodness, that would be crazy.
It is absurdly rare.
I assume it's just rolled per slot, basically, right?
Yeah, it is
rolled per slot. So
Yeah.
But you
So
quite
we're
have
talking
a line of
fraction of a fraction of a percent
Yeah,
for like
exactly.
all of them, but still like
You
5 or
walk
something
up
like
and there's
that.
just a
have
ton, and you're
And
just
they
like,
have quite a lot,
okay, well,
because they're a player, the assumption is that their other gear is also relatively good, so they do generally drop are more biased towards dropping higher tier rares and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
they're doing that like full set of items because
Yep,
you've killed a player.
yep.
Cool, I like that. I always love that little thing.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's even more important here in PoE 2, so
Right.
that's awesome. But just some of those will be unique, maybe.
We wanted them to be less common than the other content, but like way more exhilarating when you find them.
Yeah.
But of course, again, you can speak into them at the cost of other things. That's your choice.
Cool.
Mhm.
But not 100%.
Is there going to be some sort of like
I like it.
warning that they're coming, or are you going to know they're in the map ahead of time, or are you just going to get ambushed by these guys? Leaf zone from off
You
screen.
won't know they're in the map ahead of time, much like anything random you run into.
But they talk though, and they'll
yeah.
say something before they.
They monologue before they.
They do.
Don't know if I'd go to quite the level of
Again, when I
monologue,
said
but
some,
sure.
when I said some insult you, I'm not joking. Like some do literally insult you, and I believe one of the monks is a pacifist, and he's like, I don't want to do this. Don't force my hand. He'll do it anyway. But,
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just. You're just like running away.
Yeah,
He's like,
exactly.
don't make me
Don't
do
force my
this."
hand. Yeah, exactly.
well, you can just run away. You know. I
Don't make me
really
do this
like
fight,
the,
I'm outta here.
Here's an occasional spike in difficulty, and again, it's important that they are relatively rare for that reason as well. But I do want it to be when you find one, you are very excited to kill it, and of course, even though they portal out, you still have your number of portals you have. So unless you're running like a full 6 modded Waystone, just get back in there, and he's gone, or whatever. You've lost your uniques or non-uniques, whatever they had, but either way, just move on. You know.
I mean, you guys were somewhat forgiving with this. You didn't make it so that they take your items.
Yes, that would have been good.
That's an event at some
Don't
point.
give me that idea.
Pacifist monk is using the
That's maybe a
Gundam
1 week event or
protagonist
something in the
method.
future.
Be
And it's
pretty
like,
easy to do.
just take one of your items.
Yeah.
And then you got a nemesis system where
You
you
wouldn't
can
be
find
dead
and
if you
try and get it back
you
in the
didn't attack
future.
me.
And you had the tame rogue exile gem.
I don't tames the rogue.
Higher
exile.
You run up and you can quickly be like, take 1,000,000 gold.
Yeah.
And like,
Give me a little snack. Like, yeah, you want to follow me?
I mean, to be fair, that would be a fun system.
It actually would. That's actually not a bad
Running
idea.
up and just being like, hey, I'm here, give me 100,000
Oh.
gold and I'll be your ally. Is kind
You,
of,
I know you've
come on.
tinkered with the idea of a hireling system at points
Yeah,
in the
well, we
past, so now you've got your mercenary hireling system, right? Okay, so they recruit the one with good uniques.
We'll see. We'll see.
Going down a little bit of a rabbit
Yeah.
hole here.
Yeah.
So we did have some league mechanics come over from Path of Exile 1 to Path of Exile 2. You're going to be looking to port more over? Are you going to be doing some unique ones that we haven't seen before?
I mean, we're definitely going to be doing more unique ones that are, that are just completely different outside of what we've done in PoE 1. Absolutely. But I mean, I think that like sort of the hope in the long term is that each, like, as we kind of get, past the end of early access and as we're sort of, just going out, that each time we do something, we're both adding a completely new league mechanic, but also potentially bring something back as well, kind of like as another additional kind of like, here's another fun thing. So that's probably sort of what I imagine will happen. But it kind of really is case by case. Like some things we don't want to bring back, some things we do, like, and my opinion can change on a dime as well. Like if someone suggests like a new way to interpret something, then I might be like, oh, actually that is great. So, it honestly, people assume that we have a full plan of literally everything, but it's like in reality, it's like it's very much responsive to like what's happening and like
Where you
the
feel
plan
the
the
game
plan we the actual plan relates to the things that like are definitely happening, right? You're talking acts, you're talking classes, you're talking like all that stuff is like definitely like that's happening. It takes a long time to produce. It sort of happens in the background. You've got outsources, armies of people kind of working on that stuff, and then all the kind of like more incidentally stuff is very much like, oh, let's do something cool, let's just make this, what if we do this, and we don't have a I don't have a plan for the next 12 strong boxes. It's just just come up with an idea and like that's cool. Just a fun little project for a designer to work on.
How do you feel like some of the ones that were, I felt somewhat definitively part of Exile 1 in terms of clear speed, like Breach, for example, have settled into PoE 2? Do you feel like they're in a good spot, or were they a good idea to bring over to the game?
Look, I think Breach is. I mean, look, Breach is fun, right? Like, I certainly wouldn't want to remove it. I don't know about like. I mean, there's probably been some balance changes.
I
to
mean,
it
it was
spawning
spawning too many.
It has,
monsters.
it
Like,
has.
let's just say that without a doubt.
It's much
I mean,
better now to PoE 2 standards, yeah.
It's like currently on PoE 2, it's just too out of control. It just needs to chill.
Right.
There was a little bit of an assumption made where it was just like, well, you'll get overwhelmed by monsters and it's more a matter of survive as long as you can. And then, of course, because you get self-propagating herald builds that are just literally can kill anything.
Which, by the
in
way,
every
heralds
direction.
don't self-propagate anymore.
Just get that out of the way.
Just get that out of the way right now.
The power of the characters kind of
Boom!
Yeah.
distorted
Nerf hammer.
the league balance
Yeah.
in a way where it's like we have to you know, make
I'll
some
be right
changes.
back.
So yes,
Yeah, yeah.
like it's coming down a bit.
I think we saw that
sure.
one coming. with the
Yeah,
heralds.
well, 100%. I mean, look, there's a lot of things that people will say they saw coming, but it certainly does end up being the case that like the patch notes are, you know, so by the way, we aren't releasing them at the end of this live stream. We're going to be releasing them next week, but they are going to feel like a bit of a nerf fest for sure because like there's a lot of things that needed
Yeah,
to get.
let's talk balance.
Yeah. All right.
My
Settle in here.
expectations
Yeah.
and anticipations are
Yep.
that this first one is going to be an absolute wrecking ball of chaos and carnage, and see where things land.
Yeah.
But then maybe over time it'll become a sledgehammer, and then like a fine carpenter hammer.
Sure, that definitely should be the case.
As I said earlier, it's like 10,000 things will change this time. 5,000 things will change next time. Then hopefully we can halve it every single time.
halving.
People should really be going in with the expectation that like nothing they knew about how the game was balanced before is the
Forget
same. Just
everything
forget everything you know. Like,
Thank you.
Exactly. So basically we'll that kind of just means that like, you know, everyone who's finding builds, like do it again. Like you're going to find more shit that is like outrageously broken again, but it is not going to be the same shit that was broken before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Attribute stacking.
okay.
Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
This
I mean,
is-
it's the hope is though that yes, you're right. It'll stabilize to the point, and like I it will take time, but we will
Rip the
get to the
Band-Aid
point
off.
where
Do
we no
it.
longer have things that are easy to become outrageous with. Right, like the idea is like it shouldn't be that you can just slap a combination of supports together and then like you're just like destroying pinnacles in 14 seconds. You know, like it should be that.
14's a long time.
Yeah, okay, sure, but
You mean 14? That sounds like terrible.
Yeah,
That's not even on POE.
Yeah, no,
Ninja.
but that's what I'm saying is with no items, right? But anyway, so the point is that like the first time you fight a pinnacle, it should be a bit of a fight. But then of course you do get back to the ability after, you know, like when like kind of like continuing to expand, like continue to develop your character post pinnacle to the point of being able to annihilate them in seconds.
Yeah.
But it's just like that has to be earned. It can't just be that like just a combination of supports that you can get trivially will do that.
Or like a common unique, you know, and then that's it.
Yeah, exactly,
you know,
right?
and-
So,
yeah.
but it can be. But but if you get Temporalis, you know, it's like, well, now, you know, like now you've
Now
got
you're zooming.
you've got some shit going on. But it really has to be that, you know, there is an economic factor involved in becoming ridiculous.
Yes.
And so it's when that's not the case that we have a problem that we need to hit shit with a big giant balance sledgehammer.
Yeah, so originally I was going to come in and like ask about all the specific things, but we just assume that like it's going to be chaos. So
Yeah.
I like the idea instead of focusing on kind of like your core. What are you aiming for? What are your goals? What are your metrics? So
Uh-oh.
a number of like damage / how fast you kill a pinnacle boss.
Yeah.
That you're aiming for, and then how much players can exceed that, and you're like,
Yeah. So it really should be that you're not killing, as I said, not killing pinnacle bosses that fast at the moment. Like a good sort of benchmark for like just a guy walks in and like has kind of got something that's like not stupid, but also like not like doing something, you know, like not crazy. And we kind of imagine that they should have about 50k DPS doing something like that. But at the same time, anything up to 500k DPS is
10 times,
you know, is
fine.
also okay. And well, that'll take you from taking a 3-minute fight down to like a 20-second fight. Like, you know, that's your range of like potentially acceptable
Yeah.
kind of things going on. But if you're doing above that, then you're in like, we're probably going to nerf you territory at some point. So that's kind of like the thing. Now, it's worth mentioning that like we've lowered like the life of pinnacle bosses to get that to be right, and sort of
I
things
like it. I
the
like it.
difference
Let's
between
go.
a
Let's
T15
go.
boss and a pinnacle boss was just way
Nerf
too
it.
much.
Nerf it.
So that has been
Keep it balanced.
that's
Let's
been
go.
sorted out. Like it's things like that we just need to sort of get things in the right place here.
Give utility
so that's
fun,
a sort
but
of
as far as the
expectation.
bosses go, let's-
Now obviously people are going to still find ways to get 10 million DPS somehow, I'm sure, even
Oh, yeah.
though
No,
we're,
that's
like,
gonna
nerfing
happen.
many things.
That's definitely gonna happen.
But
But then nerf
the
those.
thing I think that when we're talking about nerfs and how
I'm
we want to do, my key thing that I want to try and achieve always is that whenever we're nerfing something, we're only nerfing the thing that was particularly like we're nerfing as little as possible to make it so that the average Joe who works in and just tries to do stuff is not getting affected by it.
Yeah.
Like it should
Please.
only be the
Yes,
like
that
ridiculously
is-
broken synergy thing that kind of like has some
There you
way
go.
of dealing with it that's actually affected by this. And I'm struggling to think of an example off the top of my head. Maybe you've got some of like, you know, a way that a targeted nerf that kind of
Well,
like,
I mean, like say lightning conduit, you're not going to reduce the base damage of it because someone's able to hit for 150 million with one hit from it. Like that comes from the compounding, like top end levels of exposure, stacking, conductivity, and more so shock
Yeah.
effect. Right, so it's more about like take away from the shock effect scaling side of things there and increase the base damage even. You know, like
Yeah, yeah.
do changes like that where it's like for an average person it's now better, and for someone who is absolutely abusing's not the right word because like they're doing the right thing technically by their standards, that are using all those extreme factors, bring those down a little bit, keep those regulated, and like it'll increase the average user's experience while narrowing,
and it'll
bringing
make
this
the
down and bringing this ideally up a little
bit better
in a
too.
lot of cases.
I like the idea that I felt it's somewhat reassuring to hear that there was actually kind of like a math here. Like ultimately you're saying bosses have X amount of hit points. It has 500k hit points, and so we expect players around 50. Yes,
Right.
So that's a clear number. Like we know that. Oh yeah, and we're okay with you killing that like 10 times faster than we expect.
Right.
But it's when you get it down to 1 second.
Exactly.
Then we're
10,
like,
10 times is fine, right?
And the problem with the more DPS you have, it is now I have to dodge less.
yeah,
I get more crowd control.
there's a snowball.
It is. It really is. So you're always going to be incentivized to do that, and you get to this weird thing where now it's just like, okay, well, I think you after a while was like, I haven't actually seen a pinnacle boss fight that lasted more than 2 seconds.
That was really sad to me. Probably the saddest thing about the early access launch to me was seeing the first pinnacle boss fight, and it just like, and it's like, like it's like nobody had to care about the mechanics. The first time
I gave
was
it so
fun.
many skills.
Exactly, right? Like there's so many skills and all these things, and it's like none of it mattered. It's like that's sad.
Yeah.
So yeah, we ideally was in a situation. Now I hope that doesn't happen again, but honestly, it's probably wishful thinking.
As I said, 10,000 things before, there's still going to be
there's still going to be more, and it will happen every time, and people will find stuff,
look, this again by the end of early access, I want to say we're going to be in a real fucking good spot with this in a way that is not going to have so much abusive stuff, and getting rid of that whole I feel like I have to play X. Like,
Yes, it is that
very
100%
demoralizing to players when they
Yeah.
played their thing,
Yes.
and all of a sudden something comes out and they're like, oh.
Yeah.
I
And
gotta
so
change
the
over this.
way you will know that we're successful is because you get more diversity in classes,
Yeah.
because it means that there's no longer the thing that everyone has to play because it's easy to be
I mean,
successful.
you definitely saw that where it's like the comments of any build guide. It's like, oh, another Archmage build. Oh,
Exactly.
it's just Heralds again.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like
but
this isn't even a build. This is just Herald again.
You go look at like what are all crossbow people playing, and crossbows is actually the least used weapon type, and so you specifically start there, and you're like, okay, well here's how much people are using these skills: hand of wisdom in action, hand of wisdom in action, hand of wisdom. Okay, well never mind. The crossbows are relevant, right?
Yeah, even without stat stacking, it's still better.
Yeah,
than
and it's like, okay, well, obviously take some away from there, and then it's like, okay, well, what are you left with? Well, you're still left with probably crossbows are bad. So, what do you have to do? And it's like, crossbows now, for example, just a quick change is like instead of using one-handed damage mods for added damage, they use two-handed and their base damage. And then all the skills
Wait, they
now
didn't
have
do
a
that?
higher
Okay, that-
growth per level because they scale with other external factors like attack speed less because they have the reload time. So they will be getting more damage
Honestly, I
per
thought
level, whereas
that
before
would have been a thing from
most skills were very consistently growing per level. So almost every spell would get the same amount of damage per level regardless of everything else it had. And this is how you got things like Spark just being the dominant skill, out of control, because it scales not only that, it scales obviously the number of projectiles kind of out of control, and with projectile and duration and other multiplicative scaling factors, you'll end up with just like, well, of course I'm just going to Spark everywhere. And so now it's like, well, Spark has these other multiplicative things, so it should get less damage per level. And this wasn't PoE 1 and was the right answer, and we somehow didn't replicate that exact thing that we did.
Yeah, everything
So-
just had the same damage growth.
Yes, we end up with exactly the same. So now every single skill we're looking at it and going, you're going to scale more, you're going to scale less, you're going to scale more on the damage axis because they have other things that scale.
And this just means that, like, when you're asking, well, what skills have changed? Well, the answer is literally all of them. Like,
Yes.
no skill will have the same damage as before. It's like a complete, a complete
Okay.
rebalance of.
I
the
can't
whole
wait.
thing.
Expectation
Let's go.
wise, it means that any skill that didn't have a lot of things you could do for it will get more damage. 'Cause that's
Yeah,
what it
that
does.
should be the case. But I mean, even as well, like when we're looking at things like, I sort of mentioned it vaguely before, but like I'm trying to make sure, like we are trying to make sure that like the combos that work early game still work late game, which is kind of another important element of that too.
Yep.
Yeah. So crossbow's been buffed a lot.
Kind of hoping
and I
on
also
this
had the other
sense
thing that
they
was
would
definitely
actually
getting a
mention
lot
the
of buffs as well
warrior
as
two-handed
well.
I
weapons
mean,
and stuff like
we'll,
that.
we'll see how that looks. I mean,
everything
yeah.
up and everything down.
Yeah.
It's so hard to even like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so hard to have like a cohesive message with the single like this class is better.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I mean, it's easy for mercenary skills or for crossbow skills because
Yeah.
I can look at those numbers and just be like, okay, everything's clearly higher.
Yeah.
But then in others, it's like it's
Well,
it's
that's
too
the thing
easy
with
to
Warrior.
say.
Like Warrior was like in many cases there was a lot of things that it was actually not bad.
Yeah.
Like it was good in many ways.
But then it didn't have anything that was outrageously broken like how the other classes did. In
yeah,
the same
and it
way.
didn't gel with all players in many ways as well.
I mean, we've also done balance changes on literally every Ascendancy class as well.
Yep.
You know, Pathfinder has like 2 extra notables and some changes. You've got
Wait, what?
a new notable on
Whoa.
Chronomancer. You've got
Whoa.
changes to, like, you know, Chrono was way too much,
Oh,
too
what
much
up?
utility stuff. Like, where's just my like good thing, you know? So like, you got like a good
my
thing,
bonk node?
you know? Yeah, less niche, more something. And then we've just done that on every single class. We've upped a lot of the undertaken or bad things, and we've downed a lot of the really good, powerful things that were over the top. So
this is why we've gone back to the more conventional patch note cycle of a couple of days beforehand, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, look, absolutely.
Look, if they were ready, you would have them. They're not ready because we're not finished, right? Like, and giving someone half the balance changes doesn't allow them to even make educated decisions on what they're
doesn't
going to
help
play.
you.
So it's
or
just
them.
completely pointless at that
So
point. Yeah,
we'd
yeah.
rather give you everything all at once instead of just some like here's, you know.
But even once you have the patch notes, like, don't even be under the mistaken illusion that you'll be somehow able to determine what the best builds are from that. Like, this because it's such a big difference. Of
It's
so many
hard to take
changes,
things
yeah.
into context because you can look at
Yeah.
it and say, oh, okay, so like this thing got buffed, but this thing got nerfed. It's like, okay, but you're linking just 2 things. You're not linking
Yeah.
all of the other things. that
Yeah,
go into it.
exactly. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's
You're,
very
We'll try though. We'll try.
Yeah, sure. Give it a shot. Do your best.
Look, when the game released,
Yeah,
you had to learn everything. You just might have to do it again and again. Every single patch every major patch after this, you know, you're going to have
Release
to have
two.
less and less of that, and your familiarity will be able to come in and be useful. So at least from a balance perspective at this point, like you know, it's not like we've structurally changed the campaign and all that. So you have still a lot of information and knowledge that is going to help you play the game better anyway. On your you know second. I mean, a lot of people maybe made multiple characters, but for a lot of people, this might just be their second character.
Yeah.
So they're certainly going to be more equipped. And we've had the races, so you've been able to see how the best people
Oh
play.
yeah. Oh yeah. There's definitely some good tips to learn from there. Oh yeah. That lever skip with the portal, oof, beautiful. It's my favorite. On the slightly bigger picture as well, like life and armor versus energy shields. Are you happy with kind of where either of those are
Ooh,
at?
wow,
Or
we're
what do
getting
you-
onto
what do you
this
kind of hope
too.
to achieve with them?
Okay.
Energy shields certainly, I mean, primarily due to Grim Feast, and like mana stacking being a little bit out of control, that's been too strong and more the inside of defense for sure.
Okay.
Expect some pretty drastic changes there.
Let's go.
As for armor, well, you know, it's one of those like accuracy kind of things, right? Where it's like or dexterity and like you know, where it's like honestly, our next point with that is honestly just to get in a room and just be like, all right, let's pretend it didn't exist and we were coming up with the game from scratch, and you know, we're like, okay, we have strength. What would we want the ideal defense to be? And honestly, it might even extend further than that. And really just see, firstly, to make sure we end up, if we don't end up at the same point, make sure we end up as better. Maybe we do end up at the same point and we do just go, okay, here are some other changes that we need to make around physical damage in particular or something like that. But it's one of those things where at this point we just need to like review it from literally back to basics and see where we end up, because it might be something completely different, but like it might also end up being relatively the same, and maybe it was the better answer. But either way, it's worth the discussion and worth the time, because you know, it's, I wouldn't say we're happy with it, and I wouldn't say we're necessarily like all the way unhappy with it, but it's, yeah, there's something not quite right going on for sure.
You're still fundamentally questioning some of these things and willing to go back to the drawing board on them, which is quite interesting.
Well, 100%.
And this is the time to do it.
We drastically changed how evasion works, and I would say it's for the better, you know, and we should be exploring that with everything. And, you know, so we just need to do that process still. You know, that being said, you know, as we make things more like the shield block better, as we buff the ascendancies or nerf them in you know, on the other defensive arcs, you know, things like armor will become better. But yeah, again, it's not quite right, but I don't have enough information to say, you know, where it will look, what it will look like in the future. So.
Yeah, okay, cool. So let's talk about recovery as well, because that's another big thing. I remember early on ExileCon discussions about the importance of limited recovery in making combat matter, you know, so that you could have situations where you're attritioned or where like the hit that you took matters for the next hit that you take, and you know, just back up to full. But it's pretty good in boss fights, honestly. I feel like recovery is somewhat limited. That still happens a bit, but certainly in clearing, you have access to tons of recovery with
Yeah.
cannibalism and things like that.
It's certainly out of control, and it's a little bit of, again, partly due to the fact that kill speed and clear speed just was way higher than we had expected and what we balanced around. And because if we were balancing around what people are currently doing with the upper echelons of builds, you'd you'd have to have effectively every average player and average build just could be completely, it would be useless for them. Now there are ways around that, of course, but part of it is like a lot of the recovery mechanics, like if you're talking about things like on kill and based on damage dealt, it is a rich get richer problem. And so yes, there are cases that are problematic, and then there are just characters that are too strong. And there's a little bit of both going on. I wouldn't say we've targeted any recovery specifically here, really.
Okay.
Like, it's not been a main goal. I'm not going to say that there aren't little bits changed here and there, but it's more about, we've really made sure to just... It's kind of hard to say exactly what we've done because, again, this is probably a thing we're going to have to look at next time because there are so many changes that it is hard to even understand how this is going to fit into
Once
all
the
of that
dust
now.
clears, you might be able to see how recovery's looking.
100%. Like, we're at the point where we do need a little bit of like, all right, we need another round of testing for this because, and again, I'm going to stress it is actually impossible for the amount of changes for us internally to be able to be certain or test all of this.
Yeah, but the vision is still that idea of like more stricter recovery or less powerful recovery than what.
Well, it shouldn't certainly be like here's one little piece and now it's fully solved, right? Like having heaps of recovery should be something you can achieve, but it should require a decent amount of investment or high tier item itemization, right? Like for sure it should be possible. It just shouldn't be trivial.
Yeah. So, and on that note, then for like vision, what's your vision of what Path of Exile 2 is supposed to be? Because I think some people are still like unsure about. Is it supposed to be just kind of more like Path of Exile 1, a faster game, or is it supposed to be a slower game, a much more different thing? Like, this is a hard thing to communicate, but it gets asked a lot, and I feel like people are still a bit unsure.
It's funny, though, because, like, once again, it's not... I don't view it as just a pure speed question. It's about, like, is the combat engaging and fun?
Yeah.
And also, are you getting to the point where you never get to engage with bosses? Like, if you're never... If the first time you fight a boss, you just destroy it without seeing any of its mechanics, then that's a problem. And it doesn't really say anything about the pace of combat. Like, if you look at some of the Huntress stuff we've got there, like, it's incredibly fast-paced when it comes to, like, dashing around and stuff, but you still have to engage with things, and that's the key element for us. So, like, obviously players want to get ridiculously powerful, and we still want to let them get ridiculously powerful. It just has to be earned. It has to be, like, after a certain point. And, like, after you... Like, once you have... finished your character, once you've sort of done everything, then you should be just like like crazy and like beyond the point of all reason. It's just that you have to earn it, you have to get there, right? And like that's the power growth thing. That's like it's really hard to sort of just like smoothen that out across the whole game, but like that's ultimately the goal, right? You have to kind of get to the point of like that you constantly feel you're getting stronger. You always feel like the next, like, oh, I got this and now I'm better and now I'm better and now I'm better, and you keep on going, and you have to scale that all the way to the end, because the moment that you get to the point where you're just trivializing everything too early, it's like, well, the rest of the game just becomes boring after that point, right? It has to be that there's the level of that you still have to get.
And so kind of based on that earlier discussions about like damage and boss time to kill and things like that, it sounds like the time where you want that to be starting to taper off, like the players can start to cheat that a bit, is after they've done pinnacle bosses.
Well, you should feel that way multiple times throughout the game.
You like them talking to them.
But then later you still then get to a new level of challenge that still requires you to engage again. Like if we're doing our job correctly, it's like you reach a point of feeling like you're a god, and then you're like, oh shit, but there's new god-like shit above me that then makes me have to then do
the uber gods.
Exactly right. So like, you have to keep on with that train. And it's actually really hard to take you back from feeling like, oh, I'm all powerful, back down to like I'm feeling, and so you have to kind of get that in there as you
want that Dragon Ball anime arc.
Yeah, for sure, right?
There's always a new level of Super Saiyan
exactly,
after the previous one.
Exactly, right? That's what you have to be able to do. And so, it's just smoothly taking you up that power level curve, all the way to the end.
Yeah, so I think like when it comes down to things like movement speed when clearing, it's about like if you're able to just ignore everything because you're moving so fast.
Yeah, exactly. If you're able to ignore everything, then you obviously you will move really fast. If you're not able to ignore everything, suddenly your clear speed is like not as big of a thing. So long as there are still things that are challenging you, as long as you reach the next tier and like everything's harder again, then you're good.
I feel like a point of the difficulty here between the communication of this with you guys and some of the people in the community is that I feel like you're not really looking at it in terms of POE 1 versus 2. You're just trying to answer that question specifically.
Yeah.
So it's not really about like it being like PoE 1 or 2.
Exactly,
just
right?
about-
It's just about making the combat good.
It's either the combat is fun or it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of spectrum of stuff there, but I would say that you want to be able to engage with the boss. You want to be able to fight its mechanics and do its skills, and you want to feel like you can overcome those over time and get better, and you want to engage with monsters, and you want... And yeah, there's probably some people who are like, no, I don't. I want to just press a button and loot drops on the ground, and I don't have to look or do anything. And
Well, so that's an interesting point. Is there's this let's say the quote unquote mythical average build is are they able to switch their brain off and watch Netflix on a second monitor only if they're doing like maps 3 levels under what they should be doing or something, or should that be able to happen at kind of like
once,
where
I mean,
they're
once
at
you're at,
normally,
once
or-
you're at your tier of godhood,
Yeah,
for
but,
that.
but I actually want to address that because, like, okay, so I'm watching.
Okay.
Well, okay,
Here
right
we
now
go.
I'm watching
I'm
Deep
ready.
Space Nine, funnily enough, but
Hey.
you know, I'm watching Deep Space Nine as I'm playing, as I'm testing
DS9,
the game,
good-
right?
good-
It's like
good
you
choice,
just
good
you
choice.
develop a muscle memory, and that muscle memory can include using multiple skills and doing like multiple things, and that's still to me more engaging than just holding down a button, you know?
So you're saying this like watching things on the secondary thing isn't about the game being easy. It's just a skill issue. You need to get
I wouldn't say
Good,
that. I'm just
good,
saying that
good,
you like
There you
your muscle memory can develop from more than just using a single skill. You just like and we've always sort of said that there's this thing where like, okay, sometimes you pause the show, right? Sometimes that happens because you come to a thing that's like
this is an update to the classic, second
I
monitor.
love how
Netflix
this
thing.
friggin' watching something on the second screen has become such a
I know
fundamental part
it's just,
of the...
it's just the community's just grabbed it and it's
Yeah, yeah.
become a thing forever. But
Well,
it's been updated now. Like this is the update. You want
Well,
to have,
it
you want
was-
them to have to
It
pause
was a
sometimes.
philosophy set for a
because
different
I feel like I've
game,
said that 10 years ago about how like sometimes you get the spike in difficulty.
It'll
Like, oh
haunt you
shit,
forever.
like now you have to do this. But yeah, I guess that turns into pause the video at this point. But yeah, but no, but look, if I play this way as well, right? Like it's not like I'm, like once you get to a certain point, it's like obviously you're going to want to, the music, you've heard it lots of times, like you want to have something else going on. That's fine. But I still think that there needs to be
Debatable.
the ability to have. To have something engaging from time to time that you have to deal with. So yeah.
It's always been a bit of a silly thing because you've got so much element of choose your own difficulty in Path of Exile, right? Like
Exactly.
do harder maps, do easy
Yeah,
maps.
But but look, people always want to choose the hardest stuff, right? So therefore,
Yeah.
that's what they're judging it against.
That's true, you
and
do
so
have to
that's why
account for
you
that.
do need a level of economic gating to make it so that you can't go too far with difficulty without without having to prove the economic stuff on some level, so that you can.
Yeah, you're dying and
So
losing the map.
Exactly, you're dying and losing the map. That we have to think. Like all that map sustain stuff is so tricky for that reason. Like
Yeah.
getting that exactly right. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like some big advancements in that regards. So we've got some kind of random tail questions here. Are you planning in the future?
I do like that
I
answer,
don't
though.
think it's probably happening this time around, but on changing campaign pacing at all? Like,
So,
I feel like some of the
I'm
zones are
along for the
probably a
ride.
bit
That's
too
the main thing.
large and a bit too empty.
I mean, that's more about adding more stuff to them than it is about making them smaller.
Yeah.
Like, there's still a lot more events in campaign that we haven't added yet that
Yep.
still need doing. There's like big lists of things that we never got time to do. So we'll keep on getting to those. and do
The
them.
argument there, which I do believe in, is an area should be able to be large if it has enough interesting things. The
Right.
frequency of interesting things is high
Yeah.
or
I mean,
consistent.
like the size of an area is completely right. Like imagine there were no load screens. You just walked from place to place. Like you wouldn't be thinking about area size exactly. It's just is the density of interest enough?
It's true.
Like the fact that there happens to be a load screen between one place and the other is not
Yeah,
really the relevant
long
element.
is directly
Yeah.
proportional
To-
to interesting.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, so to me,
one thing we do need to obviously do, and we have done in some areas, is just making sure that if it is a large area, it's not just interesting things to find as well. It's also making sure there's enough monster variety that way it's not just so repetitive. Of,
yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah, where you've got like almost different biomes. In
there
some
are
areas.
some where I would say the area is large enough, or you're in there long enough such that there isn't enough monster variance, and so it just gets a bit repetitive.
But yeah, it's completely true. Anytime someone says, "Oh, this area is too large," I'm like, "Well, okay. So what monsters are we changing? What events are we adding? That kind of stuff, right? Because that's the way that you change it around. Like there are areas that are very large that no one complains about because they're stuff.
'Cause they got a
fine
lot-
and
they got a
fun
lot
There's
of
and
things
also
and
stuff
like
going
there
on.
are good. I don't know how many people going to play this or how many people stop playing before 011, but like it's worth noting again. Like areas have like the fast travel thing now as well
Yeah.
to
It's certainly a big
between
help.
checkpoints,
Yeah.
and There's some of that stuff which I'm hoping, again, when people start playing from scratch, they get to see a lot of the improvements we did before as well, and see how they feel about it again.
Worth mentioning through campaign, we've got both the wisps and there's also strong boxes as well through campaign. Like they feel a little bit different. Is there's just as you play through, you're certainly finding some things you wouldn't have
Shrines
last time.
soon.
Couple more
soon.
shrines.
Yeah.
The what's it?
Shrines.
Oh,
We'll have them actually in the campaign soon.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think art wasn't quite done right or something like that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it might be a bit weird. The ones in endgame, it works a little bit better narratively, but using that asset throughout the campaign, it would feel real random. So it's just a matter of as soon as the art's done, we'll be chucking those in as well.
Oh, great. So that could be after release.
It would certainly be shortly after.
But also, like, every time we do like that we're expecting people to play through again, like we'll probably tweak like which content spawns in different areas, and we'll just like fiddle around a bit so that then you play it just feels a bit fresh, and things are going on there.
Yeah, you kind of got me there. I feel like each of the zones I'm trying to think of that like feel like they're way too big is like they're also just coincidentally empty.
Yes.
So I guess that is maybe perhaps more
it's
the issue.
it's the exact same.
Mainly a
problem
lot
happens
in Acts 3, right?
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I mean, yeah, we talked about that. Like the
exact
boring
same
empty
Yeah.
map.
When
problem.
the maps, when people say the map's too big, just not.
I think I
content.
think I phrased it to Jonathan yesterday when we were talking about it as every screen looks the same as every other screen. It wouldn't matter where I'm standing in the map. It would look.
I think the map you were talking about was Step. Like we were looking at Step and being like, okay, well, what's actually like?
It's a big square.
Yeah, and there's nothing going on in it. And even if there was stuff going on, I mean, like it's funny because like it took us a little while to even come to an understanding of like what needed to change there. Because I'm sort of saying like, okay, well, like and this is very random. So it's like, do you find the cold plains in D2 as to be a boring area because it's ultimately kind of similar? But the answer is, well, there's buildings sometimes, and you get like, there's just like there's just a little more going on in that way. So like we need to make sure that maps feel that way too when we're doing them.
There has been a few pervasive crashes and issues like that.
Oh
So
god,
how's
yes.
that going?
Well, I'll tell you what, the entire engine
I
team
saw
have
that in
basically
the
been entirely
chat
focused
when I
on
brought
that for 3
that up.
months, and it's been horrible because so I mean.
A lot of people
It's
talking
kind
about
of a long
performance
story, and
stuff,
I don't know if I should go into all of it, but ultimately, the issue is that on NVIDIA cards, the remaining issue at least, is that on NVIDIA cards, if you're using a driver that's bigger than, I think, 560 point something, like basically after that point, the game crashes, and if you install an older driver than that, it doesn't. If the crash happens in the driver, in the GPU, NVIDIA is just like not really much help, and so it's like just trying to nail down what even caused it. It's just so hard when it's like, and the thing that sucks about it is like it won't reproduce on anywhere except production and alpha, and like the moment you look at it, like we can't reproduce it anymore, and yet for some people it happens all the time, and it's just like it's so horrible. And like what we've done, we actually come up with a somewhat ridiculous idea that was now implementing, which we're going into 020 with, by the way, which is that, and this will seem stupid, but like, how about we just don't crash? Which
you tell me about this.
Yeah, exactly. So basically what we do is, what we're now changing it to, is that if the GPU driver crashes, what we do is we create a new device and then upload all the textures to that. The game is paused while this is happening, and then it unpauses, and then the game keeps going. And so that is what we're doing to solve this crash. And it's kind of ridiculous that this has to be the solution, because it's just mysteriously in the NVIDIA driver we have and we have tried to find a workaround for this. It is just like so difficult. So that in 020 that's what will happen. So
while we're here, like, do the players have a workaround? Like,
well, you can install the driver earlier than.
Sure. What about the Vulkan? Does that matter?
Yes. But no, not entirely. It does still happen in Vulkan, but it's a bit unclear about that particular thing, about whether or not that's list. But
I figured it might be.
It is in the driver. But I mean, yeah, like if you install an older driver, it will go away.
So all of this time, when people have been saying the classic armchair developer meme, it was like, why don't you just add a bit of code that says if crash equals false?
Yeah, well, something like that. Basically do with the engineering to allow us to just recreate the entire GPU context, and then there you go, and then don't crash. And that is actually the solution we're now doing with. But the thing is, the other one that sucked though was that stupid damn full system freeze, because I'll tell you what, if the entire system freezes, there is just nothing you can do to find out what the hell caused it, because there's no crash report, there's no logging, there's literally nothing, right? And it's that happened.
That's rough.
That happened when the Windows November H2 update shipped, and then things just started mysteriously freezing. And my God, that was hard to track down. And you ask Microsoft about it, and they're like, "Oh, we'll look into it," and it's like nothing happens. It's like Jesus Christ, guys! Like it's so annoying.
I can feel your frustration
Yes,
is
it's
palpable.
incredibly frustrating because it's like we want nothing better than to fix this shit. So that one was fixed. Like there was some spin lock implementation that like. I don't have any understanding of why it causes this to happen, but we tweaked it a bit and now it doesn't happen anymore. And it's like there's no rational reason why this should cause the operating system to freeze. And it's like there's not even a good answer at the end. There's not even like, oh, here's what was wrong. It's just like this random particular sequence of operations being done causes your entire system to freeze for no reason after this Windows update. And it's like, well, cool. Like what do you do about that? Like it's just terrible. And so yeah, that one sucked. But basically now, I mean, it's funny because we've fixed so many crashes that weren't the crash. So like general stability, apart from that crash, is incredibly
like
good now.
99% down, probably 99.99%.
And it's like the thing is, we'll fix a crash and we'll be like, oh, maybe this is the crash, and then it fixes like 2% of crashes, and you're like, well, that wasn't the crash, but at least it looks good to fix, right? Like it's so annoying. But as I said, we have a workaround
That's
now.
the fun part.
That's good.
That will basically recreate the graphics device if
So you might get a
if it
pause
crashes.
and then
you'll get a
unpause.
pause for 3 seconds and then like roughly depending on
sounds like
hardware,
a
and then it will
good
continue, and the game will pause at the
I obviously just make it clear we don't want it to remain like that. Obviously,
yes. Obviously, we'll still try and fix it, but at least it means you're not crashing. And you're certainly not freezing anymore. That's sorted out. And then, we found another one recently, which was like, okay, so this is another stupid one, right? Like, so anyway, so there's that whole like Intel CPU issue, like on 13th and 14th generation Intel CPUs, where like there's some freaking voltage regulation problem that causes CPUs to break in a certain way. And if that happens, then like the thing that will break is that like the decompressor will like it'll decompress something and like one bit of it will be wrong. Like literally one bit in there, and then it fails like a hash check, and then that just causes the game to crash. And so the fix, like it's like things like that will happen as well. Like you've got stuff like that, and it's like, well, once again, it's like it is our problem. We have to fix it because it's affecting real users. But like the solution to stuff like that, is just so annoying to find. And so yeah. Anyway.
It sounds like you've improved a lot of the unrelated crashes, and you've come up with a good workaround at least.
At least
for that
hopefully.
One.
But yeah,
so that sounds like a massive improvement. But I also just think your obvious frustration is very validating for people who have been frustrated with this.
Exactly. But the thing that's the most annoying about it is that like all these the engine team who are spending time fixing this, they're not able to spend time working on performance issues, which is something else that we need to be obviously improving over time. There's been a few performance improvements, but like not nearly the number we would have had if we had all 7 of those people working on performance improvements. That's been the most frustrating thing about it.
Crashes first.
100%. But it's like when they're kind of
we have been chipping away at some decent ones though.
We have.
We got some pretty good performance problems resolved.
Yeah, I mean there was that ice one that was really bad.
Yeah.
And, there was things like that. So like the worst offenders we're certainly fixing. But and like I have no doubt by the time we get each time we do a new release, it'll be even better. Yep.
Great.
But by the time we get a full release, I'm sure it'll be like very good.
And I mean, speaking of, I know it's like tangential sort of as well. Obviously, we had a lot of woes around the release, but we've done a whole lot of back-end engineering work to make it.
Yes. So the launch should go smoother as far as like all
it was pretty good.
Stuff. It was.
Wow, it still was 5 hours of not good.
Yeah, but 5 hours compared to
no. This time,
days.
I mean, look, I'm
standard.
I'm tempting fate here, but like we've made significant improvements to the ability for the realm to handle stuff.
So 5 minutes this time.
Well, I mean, we'll see, right? You never know what's going to go wrong. But
sometimes
it should be
get caught out by something random.
It should be much better this time.
Tempting fate, dude. Tempting
I
fate.
hope you get enough
Famous
players
last
to
word.
stress your theory. That's
true.
always a good thing to aim for. We'll just run up with a couple of the random kind of chat questions before we finish up today. Any possibility of Ascendancy respecs? Is that something you've considered, especially with all the changes going on?
We're sort of not in love with it. It's just one of those things where like I feel like it's key to the identity of the character, and like respecing like the journey of the character, like it does get pretty significantly compromised if you allow for that. But I know Mark is especially strongly feeling about it.
I mean, the answer is going to be the exact same as last time, which is like, I don't know exactly, or I don't know how to articulate exactly why I feel so strongly about this, and so do a lot of the team members. Of like, again, it's just that your choices should matter, and it's obviously something that I was okay with in POE 1, and so there is probably a world where I will be okay, but there's got to be some level of work involved to achieve it that isn't to just pay a little bit of gold and then you're done or whatever. Like, I want to find a way to do it if we're going to do it in a way that is like grounded
That's
and
interesting idea.
and difficult to well, not I wouldn't say difficult, but like requires some actual work to do. So that would be the compromise I'd certainly be willing to explore, which I have been thinking about recently because I know every single time we come to an expansion it's going to come
Yes.
up. So
The trial of respecting or something.
yeah, there'll be something where your character has to undergo some sort of challenge or something to do it. And I know you could argue, well, doing the trial is that, and you're
Gotta
not
make some
entirely wrong, but
sacrifices.
something a bit more.
Sacrifice a few
so
animals,
I'm
a few thousand
sure-
enemies.
I'm sure we'll have a conclusive decision, or at least a level of articulation, one way or the other, by the end of early access.
Alright.
But for now,
ask you then.
yeah, it's just going to take me a bit more time to figure out what I want to do there.
Is dynamic switching between keyboard and mouse and controller coming at all?
It's not in 020, but it will be
Okay.
coming.
They are going to have that. That is
and
awesome.
I'm really hoping by 030, like we should be able to get that. That is a very. Key
I want
feature.
that in POE 1 too. because
It seems like it's going to be
just
hard to juice
gift card
to loot
dropping.
juice maps with only one portal. Oh no, well, this question has already been answered. Well, actually no, because there's
No,
still one
this-
portal.
No,
this
this is a concern.
that's
and we
true
have to
with
do something
juice,
about
so
it.
we have to
Yeah,
figure
we
it
have
out,
to
yeah.
figure it out.
My
Yeah.
bad,
So
yeah.
in the next week, we will actually be looking into this one.
There's a few problems around
point.
it
Yeah.
still that other things to come up, like
Yep.
you know, you also don't want it to be that if you did use your one portal, because it's your portal that's used, not everyone's portal that's used. Because when it says
That's actually
one
a good point.
portal,
Yeah, it's a
that's
good point.
one
we didn't
portal
have.
I think we
for
mentioned
up
that.
to 6 players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when it's 6 portals, it's 6 portals for up to 6 players, which means technically it's 36 entries and exits out of the map, right? And like that changes things in a way where it's like when it's down to 1, it's like you don't want it to be that, oh, I failed the map. Quick, Ziggy, come join my party, get in here and finish it for me. You know, you don't want to kind of have that style of play happening. So there is still some things we need to figure out with this because it's going to
Yeah.
promote some what I would probably classify as degenerate behavior,
Uh-huh,
as well as the fact that, yeah, you're probably like, oh, my inventory's full, zone out. Oh, what the? Okay, sweet. And sure, you can add a warning, but I don't know if even restricting it to just one inventory of loot like that is good, right? I would personally prefer that it's one death, not one, entry. So there's some stuff we need to figure out, but again, Jonathan and I need to talk about that and actually solve that. So
That's interesting, yeah, because the death seems like the important part. So
Yeah.
as long as there's not like a way to cheat it, it seems like almost like you'd want to allow people to come and go as they please until they die, right?
Yep, which is a potential solution.
Yeah.
But again, can't
Something
say
to-
for sure. But yeah, 100%. That person is right for bringing that up, and
that is
it
a
is
real
on our
issue.
radar for this coming week to have, or weekend as well, to have a solution for.
Yeah.
Alright,
So with
cool.
this new league,
that definitely
not
needs to
having a
be
specific
fixed. That's-
like
I was
league
kinda-
mechanic, is it still a challenge league? Does it still have challenges?
Curious with the
it's-
number 5 up next to
No,
Sunday.
I don't think
there's
so.
no achievements or
and-
challenges
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, yeah. I'm
there's
pretty
different
sure we
numbers
weren't
for
going to
that.
do that
Yeah.
for a little bit yet.
There's
but-
just
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
not really, maybe later in early access, but for now, not really.
Yeah.
We're just trying to keep it more about
Make
the
the
game
game.
and the mechanics and less about
Make the game first.
the achievements. And the achievements will certainly, an achievement system and stuff like that will certainly be there with the full release, and we'll reintegrate all of that at the time.
Is there any plans for stash tab expansions, like for example, rune storage?
Oh, 100%.
Especially with one more
Yeah,
runes?
Right now, I'm actually trying to at least add the affinity without adding a custom tab.
Ah,
Those
good.
two things appeared from the implementation standpoint, so
Yeah.
I want to try and divorce them so we can have affinities without
we
it.
Oh, yeah.
wanted to get those in this patch, but unfortunately they just
Yeah.
didn't quite make it.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, it's actually quite likely to come in sometime,
It's-
like in a point release after, like
Yeah.
like within the 020.
As soon as the patch is out and
yeah.
stable and we're
Yeah,
on
yeah,
top
yeah,
of things, it's going to be like, all right, we need to get all those like UX or quality of life
yeah.
things that we blatantly missed out on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think
for
that-
example, like being able to add bookmarks to your atlas and
Yep,
write
that's,
the name.
that is one
That
that
is
we,
something
we
we are-
designed some stuff for it. We just haven't got it
Yeah,
yet.
cool.
So,
Okay,
I'd
that's
say
cool.
It's like 80% implemented right now.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
so it'll be as soon as we can. We'll get that in there.
All right, that is excellent. And on that note, we'll wrap things up today. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you so much, Mark.
No problem.
Well,
Thank you
thank
very much
you.
for coming.
And thank everyone
Love
for
it.
watching.
Thanks for having me here. Great time. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'm Ziggy D, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
See you.
Okay. Well, that actually kind of, I think, covered everything I was wanting. So, if I had planned this out a little bit more, I would have my own list. But yeah, main things, how far are they nerfing things? Do they have a like cap for damage and stuff like that? They did actually mention that specifically. So that's pretty cool. Things going from like 50,000 damage and then being okay with like 10 times that, so that it's, you know, you're not trivializing things. That way boss fights take at least like a 20-second thing, so you have to do some mechanics. That's, I mean, yeah, I like it. Now, as long as they leave utility, like for instance, the chess piece, right? The name's escaping that they did talk about that did get nerfed. You could still blink around, like if they stop it from having like infinite damage, but it has like infinite utility, then awesome. So, you know, like actually moving around faster, actually doing everything faster, that is really cool. And they're about to do that, so doop. And okay, please stop popping up. Okay, I'm just not gonna click that. And badoop. Let's go ahead and close that. So the can I just bring this over? Does this work? Okay, cool, perfect. So let's look through a couple of things, just to make sure that I waited long enough, because I didn't have it on the right category. In case anybody has a little bit more time for getting the drops. And also, I do kind of want to re-look over some things, so this would be nice. Okay, badoop.
Director on Path of Exile 2. Welcome to GGG Live.
So,
well, it's been a little over 3 months since we launched early access. To claim dive into the new Dawn of the Hunt update.
Okay, what do we got here? Gameplay trailer is kind of whatever.
Early access that do way more damage. Explosive spears will do an even larger.
The explosive thing, I'm actually curious to see with the explosive, with the combo thing to make things explode. Wonder if there's something there. I definitely want to do a bleed build though. Definitely Huntress time of the month type build. Let's see what we got.
The corrupted life force
a couple of
causes
these I
all
missed
enemies around you to grow volatile blood boils on their skin. When those enemies are slain, the boils will burst, spreading corrupted blood to all enemies around them. The ritualist also excels in taking advantage.
Okay, that's just insane. That's actually broken. With the belt, that is completely broken. And just with how strong rings are in general, period. Just in, yeah, that's literally half of, because what was it, 80% more or something like that? Yeah, pretty much you doubled your rings. Like this is just 50% more ring, literally. Like that's actually crazy.
Advantage of magical trinkets. The unfurled finger skill allows you to equip an additional ring on a finger around your neck. Taking Mystic Attunement increases the bonuses of all the rings and amulets you have equipped.
Yeah, and then, okay, I didn't even pay attention to that. See, that's one I missed. So that literally is just that belt, but instead of like 80%, it's just 25%. And then since you're getting 50% more, then as far as rings go, actually, wait, isn't that? Because it's 25%, so you get 160%. I think it's 80%. I can't remember the exact number, but let's say 80%, right? Just as a baseline. So if you have 80% for ascendancy points, you get effectively 50% more. And then, let's say you have the same ring 3 times. So yeah, you get 50%. And then you have another 25 of each of those. So 25%, 50, so 75. This is 125%, right? So that's interesting. So 125% compared to 160. And that's just from the ascendancy. And that was already the best belt. Even if you had it, yeah, that's crazy.
Now, this is one of my favorites.
Oh, and it also adds the amulet. So yeah, that's you want to add the amulet in at that point with 4 ring or with 4 slots. At that point, that's 100%. So technically, that's 150 to 160, depending on how good your amulet is for this. Yeah, that's crazy.
Increases the bonuses of all the rings and amulets you have equipped. Now this is one of my favorites. As the Whisper's Ask grants you a new skill, Ritual Sacrifice. Use the skill on the corpses of slain rare monsters to absorb the power in their blood to give you one of their modifiers for a short time. Specialize further into Ritualistic Sacrifice with As the Whispers Demand, which allows you to perform that skill on yourself instead of a corpse. Cut your own hand, sacrificing some of your own blood to empower yourself. The Amazon Ascension is for those looking to hunt more than just beasts, trained as an elite perfection. The Predatory Instinct skill will cause you to reveal weaknesses in the defenses of rare and unique
That one's
enemies,
kind of interesting.
causing
So
you to
let's see. Against rare and unique enemies, 50% against.
deal more damage.
So it's just 50% more. So it's kind of like, I mean, it almost looks like punishment without having punishment.
You can see those weak spots.
And with where calling is now, it ends, looks like, I don't know if it's always going to be in the same health bar points at the end, but effectively, if you had calling too, it
represented
really
on their
just
life
moves
bars.
right into calling. Kinda cool.
While using Elemental Infusion, any charges you consume will infuse your weapon with elemental power, causing any projectile attacks to explode on impact.
Okay, so gain 2 cold infusion, gain 2 fire, and gain 2 lightning infusion. Depending on how, like, yeah, depending on what the actual numbers are for those, that could be crazy.
The critical
wonder if you
strike
could
skill
cycle
is as simple
that.
as it sounds. It takes your excess accuracy and gives it to you as critical strike chance. Additionally, you have skills like Mystic Harvest, which allows your elemental damage to leech life, and as Merry Brew to be able to use either flask to
I forget. Yeah, no, elements are now for crit. So, I mean, if these are my 2 options, probably that for
restore both life and mana.
bleed.
So those are the 2 new ascendancies for the Huntress.
And then just
restore
do
both
excess
elemental damage to leech
crit.
life,
As well as physical damage. Wait. Based on your elemental damage as well as
and as Merry Brew
life flask also recover mana. Mana flask also recover
to be
life.
able to use either flask to restore both life and mana. So those are the 2 new ascendancies for the Huntress, but those are not the only ascendancies in 2. The smithing
Okay, this is
Smiths of Katava
I
are
really
master
wanna-
blacksmiths and have the ability to forge their weapon, quite literally. Using the Against the Anvil notable skill, you can enhance your weapon with fiery destruction before any battle. After doing so, your attacks will release explosions on hit for maximum devastation. You can also
That's
use
what
the
I really
power
like.
of Kitava to summon an animated copy of your weapon to fight alongside you. A great blacksmith can do more than just forging their weapon, though. Their armor can be enhanced too.
Oh yeah, let's actually
There's
look
a
at
lot of
these.
notable skills all disconnected at the bottom there. By taking this point here, which is free to assign, your character is unable
Okay, now
at the bottom there. By taking this point here,
this passive skill is free to allocate. You can only use a normal body armor.
which is free to assign, your character is unable to equip body armors with mods of any kind.
What do we have? Body armor grants armor, also applies to chaos damage.
So your body-
Ooh, okay, that's huge.
The armor must be normal. Sounds like a downside.
Body armor also or grants hits against you have 50% reduced critical damage bonus.
Right? Except now in true blacksmith fashion, you get to craft
100% increased
your
stun
own body armor by
threshold.
taking those
kinda
disconnected
whatever.
notables with your point.
That's kind of nice, but
If you want your body
20% increased strength. Okay, that's a significant
armor to grant
number.
life,
Okay.
take
50% life, and then 75% to each of the resistances. So the 15% increased life is huge. The funny thing is, when I first saw that, I didn't think much of it, but in context of PoE2, that's actually a pretty huge number. So that, I mean, the region's kind of okay. I'm curious what the bottom ones are there.
those disconnected notables if you
Yeah.
want resistance just in a more literal in their hands. The mercenary.
resistance is probably, and the thing is too. I'm assuming though that's you can only take 8 if you're gonna craft that armor though. That's kind of the problem, right? Because if you do, I mean, you're kind of giving up. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I like. Unless you can allocate those with normal skill point. I don't know. It just feels weird since they're all notables, right? Because none of those are like game breaking. Like the 50% crit is nice. The chaos one is insane, actually, right? So you would probably do the chaos one. But like, unless as far as power goes, I mean, there's got to be way more power in the ones above than just 20% increased strength. That's kind of my problem with that one.
To grant life, take this like your the existing Ascension classes, the Gemling Legionnaire and the Witch Hunter, you can now play as the Tactician. The Tactician is
This
a
one
former
I'm very
Blackguard elite.
since I did do a crossbow.
Free from the duties of a Blackguard, he is able to use his training to decimate the monsters of Rayclast and earn a healthy income doing so. This training comes in the form of various skills like suppressing fire, which causes all projectiles to pin enemies. When combined with the right where we want them notable, your pin not only stops your enemies from moving, but stops them from performing actions too, similar to freeze. With a soldier's training, the Tactician also works well cooperatively. Using the whoever pays best notable, you can place multiple banners at once. The watch how we do it.
Now this one's the allies in your presence. Yeah, that could go crazy.
Gives a portion of your weapon's damage to your allies as well. But if that isn't enough, you can also command your army of off-screen archers to unleash hell and carpet an entire area.
Yeah, I just want to know what the other stuff is.
Finally, witch players will be able to join their legions by becoming undead themselves. In Dawn of the Hunt, we're introducing the Lich Ascension class.
Man, it's either going to be Huntress, probably bleed crit, I think. Then yeah, Huntress, Lich, Tactician. Yeah, Huntress, Lich, Tactician, or maybe an actual warrior. Depending on, I mean, again, it's we're at waiting for patch. The
crystalline phylactery skill allows you to nominate a jewel in which to contain part of your soul, massively increasing its power. There's just one downside to.
So, 100% increase effect of Saga Jewels, 50% more mana cost if you have no energy shield, increase spell damage, increase maximum energy shield, cast speed.
Splitting your soul this way though. If you have no energy shield, your mana costs will shoot up. The Necromantic Conduit skill causes you and allies in your presence to have unholy might, granting extra damage as chaos damage. Rupture the Soul makes enemies you curse explode with chaos damage when slain. Dominion over Flesh allows you to apply an additional curse. It's safe to say you'll be the true master of the occult by choosing the Lich class. So Dawn of the Hunt has the Huntress and 5 new Ascension classes, but it doesn't end there. Let's take a look at some of the new skills we've added. And it will be made available in the upcoming. Previously talked about the Raised Spectre, found in the occult skills on the skill gem crafting panel. Raised Spectre is a skill but the spirit or a few
that was pretty,
or summon exclusively specters. It's all up to you and how you want to customize your army of the undead. Experimenting with this one for a while. Skill. Since we've been talking,
the mount. That's kind of cool.
If you take keeping an eye to enhance your character, let's talk about support gems. Support gems are used to modify your skill.
Okay, honestly, this next one though is kind of crazy. I kind of want to see if I can pause it. Alright, attack with supported skills, create a spectral projectile. This looks kind of cool. Spectral projectiles will fire if no spectral projectiles have been created in the last 3 seconds. Supported skills deal 60% less damage when not fired from spectral. Oh. Huh. And then supported skills deal 20% more damage when fired from spectral projectiles. So you attack 5 times to then get 25%, or sorry, 100% more damage on 5 attacks, essentially. Okay. Kind of cool.
Feel that a lot of builds have insufficient options here. To alleviate this, we're adding over 100 new
I
support
mean, that's
gems.
definitely. So you could do like a one something else, or just spam it, and then you start comboing something else, and then boom, they all go, and then you repeat. That's kind of cool. I can see that being a cool.
Hema crystals will
thing to
enable a
use.
new kind of bleed build, turning the damage over time you would have done into explosive Vile crystals.
Okay, supported attacks cannot cause bleeding. Supported skills consume bleeding on enemies. Oh, okay, so it actually. Oh, okay, so that's actually kind of cool. I thought it was something like if you killed them, then the crystal would spawn. Okay, and then they can't cause bleeding. But yeah, if you got a big bleed on something, you can go ahead and just explode that.
Alignment is a support gem for bow attacks, which can reward skilled players with good positional skills. Caltrops will allow you to attacks, which can reward.
Okay, this could be crazy. Okay, now if they're my thing was is in a lot of the support stuff, if they didn't have like I don't like just generic damage, but if it's like situational and you got to like do something and you got to add something cool to it and it's really fun to play, then sure, I do like that actually. So indicated direction changes when an attack with supported skill matches indicated direction. Wait. Oh, so this is essentially Fiora from League of Legends, but you have to. Okay, cool. Can we see it here?
Alignment is a
Okay, there's an
support gem for
arrow
bow attacks, which
up.
can reward skilled players with good positional skills. Caltrops will allow you to litter the battlefield with hazards, slowing your foes as you fling
Does
spears
it
through
go?
their
It has to
ranks.
go off your attack speed though. That'd be
But there's
weird.
plenty more
otherwise.
for every playstyle, such as Enormity,
20% increased size, 20% more damage, 20% more life for minions. Ooh.
Unsteady Tempo,
Okay, this one was kind of interesting. First attack in sequence with support skills inflict hobble on you for equal to 40% of your life. Second attack in sequence has 30% more chance to critically hit. Okay. That's weird. Third attack in sequence with support skills deals 20% more damage.
Profanity,
Oh, hobble thing though. Wait.
Retaliate,
Consume a corpse within 5 meters on use if possible. Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, I already
Retaliate,
read that one. Okay, and I remember this one.
Syzygy. Yep, that's a real word.
Hits from supported skills are considered crushing blows against ignited and fully armor broken enemies. Heavily stunning enemies which are ignited and fully armor broken with supported skills will permanently intimidate them. Ooh, okay, that's cool.
And many more.
Again, though,
Now,
that's
we've
kind of
talked about
like
a
an
new
actual
class, new ascendancy classes, new skills,
damage.
and
At
new
least there's
support
something
gems.
you got to do with
But
it.
let's
though.
not forget about the core of a true action
You got to
RPG,
combo with like
the
3 other
items.
skills, then sure.
To start with, let's talk about uniques.
Okay.
You to decide
Oh,
blood magic or
okay.
archmage builds. With this belt, you can use 2 life flasks or 2 mana flasks. It's up to you. Now, we could go through these all day. You can be useful for time at
Too far. Here we go. Oh, Coming Calamity is armor. I don't know why I thought it was a weapon. I'm dumb.
penalizes enemy resistances.
Coming Calamity is the Herald.
Waste gate. We've been through these all day.
That's already a
But we'll
theory
leave
one.
most of them. Over time, our now,
I'm curious to see what tiebreaker actually
one
does.
example is Scyther's Spear, which
Okay. Aggravating any bleed with this weapon also aggravates all ignite on the target. Yeah, that kind of sounds cool. I wonder if you can actually get a really good bleed ignite build. That was one thing I was kind of hoping. There's one thing I talked about before is doing one build and then doing another build and kind of smashing like archetypes together with like minions and ignite, and then doing your own ignites with minion ignites or something of that sort, and it actually working out pretty well. This one is just here's bleed, here's ignite, smashing that together. I definitely want to try that. And I just realized it says cannot use projectile attacks. That's interesting.
Combines
But-
bleed and
okay.
fire in a powerful way. It allows your ignites to be aggravated, dealing substantially more damage. We're also introducing a suite of unique bucklers with some interesting
Infinite projectile parry range. % increased parried debuff duration.
parry mechanics. Calgyra's Arc, for example, allows you to parry projectiles from any distance. And we're also adding our first unique charms. Bayra's Anguish will not only protect you from Ignite, but will also emit a devastating Fire Nova whenever you do get ignited. In sum, there's just a ton of new... We also want to talk about crafting options. In each now, multiple tier number. The first layer, flat damage mods tend to get outclassed by in-game. So we've changed runes to have multiple tiers, allowing you to get higher tier mods than before.
Okay.
Add new
Okay, cool.
game. The Asmeri Spirit has made itself present in Rayclast, and
Okay, let's see what else we got here. Wisp. I mean, now that this is just kind of a in-game thing, I'm okay, cool, whatever. Like a league type thing. I mean, it could go into, but it's just like here's part of the hunt. New maps. I'm pretty satisfied with what they said here. This is pretty cool. Rogue Exiles. That is amazing. Unique strong boxes. Cool. In-game corruption, which they already did a lot of changes for strong boxes too. So that's pretty nice. Let's go and listen to this again.
Specific objective. On the Atlas, you will find areas of corruption caused by the beast.
This is the big one.
In
right
the
here.
center of each one, you will find a
Corrupted
corrupted nexus, the source of the affliction. In the areas leading up to the nexus, you will notice that corruption spills out from slain. Existed on the Atlas before, but we've done significant work on improving these monsters, make them more interesting and more rewarding. Once you reach the nexus, you will have a new task: cleanse the source of corruption. When you defeat the last rare in those maps, they will spawn one of 3 terrifying bosses, amalgamations of corruption itself. After defeating that boss, Doriani will come and cleanse the corruption for good. As the remains of the defeating that
Okay,
3
that's
source
actually
of corruption.
just on a
When you
side
defeat
note.
the last rare in those maps, they will
That is a beyond boss. So all the corruption, I know they kind of hinted with the story already that the corruption and everything that's technically beyond when we could like crangle items and stuff, and you know, as far as like the actual corruption in PV2, they already kind of hinted that they were connected in that way. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. I am curious.
spawn one of 3
Lore-wise, I
terrifying
can't wait to
bosses.
see what happens with the
Amalgamations of corruption
story
itself.
here.
After defeating that boss, Doriani will come and cleanse the corruption for good. As the remains of the boss are purged of corruption, it coalesces into
Especially with like Act 4, 5, and 6. That could go crazy.
raw crystallized power, which you can use to gain points for your Atlas passive skill tree. The upgrade system that allows you to add and enhance content in your maps.
Yeah, they
We
definitely
didn't
made
stop
that
there,
a whole
though.
lot better.
When you complete a corrupted nexus, all of the remaining surrounding corrupted maps will become cleansed maps. Cleansed maps also have new monsters, a new boss, and their own set of modifiers and rewards.
Currency, and you can't actually drop like armors and stuff, is what he was saying in the Q&A thing. That's interesting. So if you want to farm more currency, then you do the cleanse stuff. I like it.
Including finding fracturing orbs by slaying cleansed
Yeah, and then the
enemies.
fracturing orb thing is insane, dude.
These orbs can be used
I definitely want to try more crafting this time around, just to see how it is, and I can't wait till they add more. So yeah, I like the direction that they're going in with the crafting and stuff. Yes, it was whatever before. Again, early access. It's just crazy that people, you know, want to complain so much. Early access. I mean, it's let them cook a little bit. There's a lot here. I mean, it's already a huge amount of game. And I like that they kind of said that they're not thinking of PoE 1 and PoE 2. They're thinking of, this is PoE 2. What do we do to make PoE 2 better? I like that. Is PoE 2 fun? And there is obviously what I would like to see the direction for the game, but I definitely want to let them cook because, yeah, I think if it does end up being the, you know, PoE 1.5 or whatever, then I get to choose. Do I like PoE 2 or do I like PoE 1? And I can go play either or. You know, PoE 1's still something I'm actually playing quite a bit of right now because of the Pre-Show League. So there's still something there for me, and there's something that I do like. So I mean, it's either way. There's going to be a game here, and like the fracturing orb and stuff, they're adding that in. Let's see what they add. Let's see what they change. A thing I think they should change is, and again, they already talked about kind of let them cook on Breach, and yeah, I'm willing to wait. But I do think that Breach, especially in the current state that they put it in, I don't know if that really belongs in PoE 2. And I'd love to see them completely rework Breach for PoE 2. But yeah.
In crafting on a rare item to cause one of its modifiers to become fractured.
But let them
A
cook.
fractured modifier is one that cannot be modified by any means. You are able to freely modify.
And I think that's one main takeaway, and I'm just going to skip through this. I think that's one main takeaway from this, too, that it is going to be a situation of kind of let them cook and see what happens, because they, you know, we got to see what happened from 0.1 to 0.2, and that's a pretty good deal. Now, for me, does this, you know, this definitely was sticking the landing, but do they really stick the landing when we come out with the actual patch notes? We get to see the numbers. Because, yeah, it is funny, though, how much they were talking about, like, you know, the builds being nerfed into the ground, which, again, I completely agree with. So, I'm happy to hear that. That's all I'm saying.
With the right mod, it can prove to be a very powerful crafting base indeed.
Oh, and the cool other thing that they mentioned, too, is bringing up the lower end. And so, anybody at the bottom might have gotten a buff, and it might feel a little bit better or close to the same, and bringing down the top end. That is something that a lot of times, as far as balancing goes, it's a very hard thing to do, and they have missed the mark on that in the past. So, but the thing is that, you know, they're open to it and they're saying the right things. That's the main thing. So yeah, anyway, here we go.
You must now choose. Do you
Casa.
complete all the corrupted
How's it
maps and then the Nexus?
Or
maybe
do you
beeline
cleanse
to
it
the
and then you
Nexus,
can
complete
farm
it,
for currency
and do
and stuff?
all the remaining maps cleansed. Both have rewards to entice you and challenges to assess.
like
One
it.
thing we've had
Cool.
a lot of feedback on is the busy work around running towers and managing your tablets.
Towers and tablets
The
are great.
first
I like that. That's
the
huge.
other,
Being able to
but
do
if you
3
can
and you have
ask
some unique ones.
a lot more than we had expected.
That's massive.
And that made us realize something.
Okay, now this was kind of the confusing
Continuing
thing.
from where you left off.
So you die and now you can continue from where you left off. You have less
When you start
portals
the
as
endgame,
it goes
you get up to 6 total attempts per map. As you add more modifiers to a waystone, running every
good point.
waystone as a rare, you will have to be more
And
careful.
then see, that one has 1 portal because it's a rare. The other one had like 3 on it.
In parties, everyone gets to respawn that number of times.
Okay. Okay, so it's 2 and 1. Oh, wait. Hang on.
In parties, everyone gets to respawn that number of times.
All right, by the way, I just noticed the name. That's funny. That's funny. Good job. But the Lich gets 1 and the Forge Master gets 2? That's an
But
interesting
we
one.
still think it's important that you can kill a boss in one go. In order to allow that to happen, we've made a change so that once you start the boss fight, it changes over to the same respawning system we use for pinnacle bosses.
5 map portals
This
remaining.
means that the map owner can choose to respawn everyone at the same time. Another complaint we've seen a lot of is players not wanting to do the
Okay, and
pinnacle
then-
content.
Yeah, not losing XP from the pinnacle content and stuff like that. That's nice. I'm curious to see how many changes they actually put in so that it actually helps out. And I think they even mentioned they were going to do that in POE 1 from the interview. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
because of the experience
back from
penalty
ads.
from dying.
How's it going,
A
Cos?
change we've made here is that all pinnacle content now no longer grants experience, but also no longer removes experience on death either. Dawn of the Hunt also brings the first batch of Twilight Order reliquary keys from the early access supported by our supporters. They can contain any unique item found in Path of Exile 2. If the selected item is a pinnacle boss drop, then only special keys dropped by this content will be able to provide these items.
Oh, okay, cool.
For example, Hand of Wisdom in action can only come from a key dropped by Zesht.
That's kind of. Whoa.
We're also making a change that allows pinnacle boss units
Yeah, I want
to
to
drop
see.
at any
I want to see how Hand of Wisdom in action is nerfed into the ground. That's all I'm saying. Let's see how they handle some stuff like that. Which, again, they talked about actually nerfing it and then nerfing the drop rate. So I feel like Hand of Wisdom in action, if it's still in the game anywhere near, I mean, it's probably, at least like 50 to 90% nerfed. But I mean, also I could see it being like in like 3 weeks you're only going to find like 2 of them. Kind of thing.
difficulty. Rarer uniques will be rarer at lower difficulties, but still possible to find.
Good to hear yourself. Doing
This
pretty
applies to
good.
the drop charges for the reliquary
I'm
keys from
actually
this content
really
as
excited
well.
to play this. I didn't know how much
We
I would
spoke
want to
about
play it,
towers
but I
and
definitely want to
tablets
play it a lot
earlier.
more now.
But we have also added a suite of unique tablets.
Because I'm
Each
definitely
of these
about
adds
let them
crazy
cook
interactions to the maps influenced by.
till we get closer to release.
For example, this unique tablet
there's
allows you to
any
run
hesitation,
any map in a tower's
just wait.
radius without requiring connections, which can be quite useful for
But yeah,
jumping gaps.
They're
and
definitely
traveling around
saying
your
the right
atlas.
things. That's the
And
best
this
part.
tablet causes all runic monsters spawned during expedition encounters to be duplicated, and weakens all expedition.
I will say that too, I guess. They're definitely saying the right things. And that it's kind of been like, let them cook to see if they're doing the right things. And I think there's been some growing pains there on the doing part. And again, I think as far as actually seeing what they do, when the patch notes hit next week, that's when I'm going to be like, okay, they're not only talking the talk, they're walking the walk. So, sadly, I got to wait till next week to actually find out that answer. But they've almost completely stuck the landing on this one, I believe.
Monsters that emerge from the ground. The Atlas tree has also been expanded, and you can find many of the new mechanics there, and improvements to existing ones too.
Yeah, it's going to be funny seeing this slowly expand out.
Now, through this live stream, we have mentioned quite a few new crafting options that we've added. New runes, corrupted essences,
still looks pretty-
fractured mods, and jewelry
pretty small.
crafting bases. But we did have just one more crafting system to talk about. Recombination.
Expedition was the
Oh,
only in-game
yeah,
mechanic
this
that
was
was
something
lacking
really
a crafting
cool.
system, so that needed to change.
So it's 100 of that material, but then at the same time, they talked about there's a way to select mods. So hopefully that's actually out when it comes out. Otherwise, I'm not touching recombination for like a month or week or however long it takes for them to get the next patch in. But because they said it might not be in 0.2.0, but if it's in like 0.2, like 0.2.1, then sure. Like I'll wait till 0.2.1 because being able to select certain things, I just kind of hope it's in because I definitely want to try to level a character and then hopefully this is something you can do like in Act 4 type area, right? Especially since Act 4 I think is King's March when Act 4 actually gets released. So hopefully around then you can actually start playing with making some of your own gear for leveling. And that would be really cool because then you can start getting your own gear to go into maps a little more. And I think a lot of earlier game agency for having decent gear is going to be massive for just people leveling up, especially for how things feel. Again, too, I still wish there was a way to get slightly higher level gems so that you could actually do a little bit more damage. And I can't wait to see the gem balancing. That's going to be crazy. but I think that's one of the problems they have is like if you hit a wall, like whatever build you're doing, if it hits a wall, your gear leveling up still doesn't provide that much depending on what your build is. It's either quite a bit or very lacking for say damage. And then so leveling up isn't that strong in a lot of cases. Um, you can't level up your gems if you're just stuck at a certain area level. And then now you're just gear is the only way to save you. And they definitely need to put some agency on one of those somehow. Especially if you're stuck in like at the end of Act 1 or something. And especially when there's certain big walls that people can run into. There needs to be some way, you know, like for instance, Elden Ring, you go back and you come back stronger, and then you're like, okay, boom, now I win. Whoop.
Range. Recombination is a mechanic that might be familiar to some players. It allows you to merge two items together, hoping to get the best elements of each on a single new item. This new found during expeditions to fuel it. The
That's what I
rarer
was
the
saying. It
mods on the
might
item
be
you are
a little
combining,
bit,
the
but
more expensive the cost.
and they also
That
said they
wraps
changed
up
that.
all the major in-game changes we're talking about today. With all the system changes and new content, there's one more thing we wanted to clarify before we move on, which is that all the content we've talked about.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. You can play your old characters if you want to, or you can play in the new economy, which is really cool. Cool. Okay, so that definitely was long enough to get the drops probably for anybody who still didn't. If I'm hoping the drop thing is still going on in that case. Yeah, drops enabled still. Cool. Good. So yeah. Pretty nice. Okay. Oh, on a side note, as of right now, might be a little too early to say it is 100% certain, but I actually, you know what, I'll say this instead. Gonna have a Mecha Break podcast coming up. We're gonna do a downtime in the hangar, or I'm gonna have a downtime in the hangar episode up on YouTube. Not gonna do a live stream. We're gonna try to do probably the episodic YouTube thing going forward, but downtime in the hangar is coming back in some way. For now, just a one-off kind of thing, but we'll be doing more. Again, a lot of mecha content, but I definitely want to expand it to Path of Exile or anything else at some point, or just in general. So, but yeah, in the midst of shifting that around, but at the very least, possibly gonna see what Gustav's gonna be doing, and maybe do something a little more consistent with that. But for now, the main plan thing is just a Mecha Break thing. We're gonna talk about Mecha Break. It's gonna be me, Alshi, Vion, and Frost, and should be not this coming Sunday, but the next one. Right now is kind of where it seems, somewhere around there. So within probably 2 weeks, I'll probably announce it in the Discord or something, or and then of course once we actually have the set day and time, then I'll actually start posting it. But yeah, so that'll be just on YouTube though. There won't be a live stream for it, but definitely gonna see how that feels to record and then get that up and just do it that way rather than just live streaming it, then having to clip it and all that craziness. Other than that though, POE 2 stream on Friday next week. Maybe a stream for the patch notes, and then definitely Monster Hunter Wilds. I also recorded that off stream, reacting to that. That'll go up on YouTube here. I would say today or tomorrow, but maybe probably this weekend. And then also I've got a Mecha Break video that I'm working on that should be out before the podcast, and with one of the topics that we're going to be talking about, and just me analyzing all the numbers and stuff, so that way it's all the numbers and crazy boring part about it will be in a video somewhere, and I can just reference the final things when talking about it on the podcast. But anyway, yeah, that's good enough. I probably should. I was gonna say I could play a little bit of POE 1, but Other than that, might have a random POE 1 stream. I've got my build fully going. Actually, you know what? I can just bring it up real quick for the wand stuff. Whoa! Wait, did that not come through? Okay, no, it hasn't come through yet on my end to see it, but yeah. Okay, so here we go. Wand. Yeah, let's do the wander. So I've actually got a XP strat.
Oh.
We got stuff. Oh, cool. Let's see what we get here. I believe. Good one. Here we go. Good one, good one, good one. And boom. Damn, 32. Rip. Okay. We sell this. Oop. I'm gonna put this up for 3.5, but we'll see how quick I get messaged. If it happens before I end, then definitely not. But the main thing is now I've been playing around with these ones instead. So I went all the way to tier 16 maps with right here, these ones, these 9 chaos ones. So I can even look up to see how much they are right now. Yeah, I see immediately 10 chaos. So there is 10, 15, 50, 50. I don't know what the actual DPS on the 50s are, but there is something close to 10. So, but these were like, one was 9 and one was 10. Other than that, a 30 chaos amulet. I finally put this on, which I was just running a tabula for the longest time for the goal. And yes, I did get a headhunter. They're 5 divine right now, which is insane. But before that, I just literally had that belt. Yeah, just a ton of chaos res, so I wouldn't die. Things were pretty easy. This definitely just kind of enabled shenanigans of headhunter variety. Mainly, I definitely don't die when I run into things. Then I got the soul ascension stuff. I still don't have all my gems in, which is crazy. I need to get like steel skin in here somewhere. I just swapped a Herald of Purity and Hatred over Herald of Ice and stuff that's in this. Like, not actually that bad to just start the build and kind of build it up from nothing. I still probably need to go through and redo a lot. Actually, I do need to go through and redo a lot of these. Maybe add some more shrine buff effect. But yeah, overall, not too bad. And then Conqueror's Idol. Pretty good. Maybe get some shrines, additional shrines on the 3x1s. And stuff like that. But anyway, okay, cool. Where was I? What was I saying? Yeah. So yeah, pretty much built this strat up from nothing, just 5 chaos here, 5 chaos there, not too bad. Put these up for now too, where I accidentally use those. I do have a couple of shrines. Do I want to just do? Let's do this. Does this one have? More life, area, 2 proj. Okay, area could be crazy. Let's see, 2 proj monsters cannot be stunned. Debuffs on buffs on players expire faster. Yeah, that one kind of sucks for this. I will say having to reroll these is a little annoying, but you know, 900 chaos, so not that big of a deal. In fact, crit chance, that can be deadly. Projectiles can be deadly. Grasping vines on hit. Scary. Oh wait, this not... I guess I'll get to find that out. Oh, cool. Impel Bleed buffs on players expire 70% faster. New monsters have a random shrine buff. Okay, let's not say we did on that one. Power charge cannot be stunned life. Power charge on hit. That's definitely pretty deadly, but nothing too crazy. Reduce damage from crit. Energy shield. Physical damage is extra chaos damage. That's where I'd actually die. Yeah, my chaos resist isn't that high. Okay, well I can't do reflect right now. Bosses are possessed. Okay, that could be scary, but you know what? Let's risk it for the biscuit. I believe. All right, you know what? Let's try this one. Damage players' totems take from hits is taken. Oh, that's funny. Okay, anyway, sure. Let's go with this. I believe. And then you know what? Let's. Do I have some shrine stuff? Where is shrines? Oh, I got one. What does this one do? Contains 2 additional apparition shrines. Forget what that is. Oh, that's the evolving shrine. Well, we'll just put 2 on. Why not? And then more shrine. Boom. Yeah, 3, 4, 5, and I've definitely got 6. Sure. That should be enough. I believe. Here we go. But yeah, so that's the plan though. Probably Thursday. Oh yeah, Monster Hunter. The Monster Hunter stuff, yeah, I'll have that up soon. Like I said, Monster Hunter stream on the 3rd. But what did I just... Oh, crit. Yeah, probably. Oops.
Exile.
Exile. Okay, well. We wait to ramp. Okay. That's scary, whatever's shooting that. Oh, those things, okay. Of course, the rule in POE, don't stand still. Yep. Do not stand still. Reap. Okay, that might be a little too much because that's physical damage and that's critting. That's a lot of phys damage and that's critting. Yes, it is scary. Oops. Oh well. It happens. Okay, there we go. Now we're starting to ramp. Okay, we're not starting to ramp. Holy shit. Yeah, it's just that crit. Gotta be that crit. I don't see anything else that would be too ridiculous. Yep. Okay. Try one more time. I guess we got 3 more portals. Actually getting one shot though. Please. There we go. Oh, now I got a shit ton of damage. Oop, I don't want to be here. I can't get out. That was a gap that I went over, not a thing. No. Okay, last portal. You know, I will say though, it is kind of funny. It doesn't really feel bad burning like 40 chaos right now. This event's kind of ridiculous. Oh, here we go. Believe. That's a gap. Okay, whoa, too much everything going everywhere. I've got a shit ton of damage though right now, that's for sure. Oop. There we go. That's good, it's good, I believe. We got this. Boom. Whoa, whoa, I'm petrified. Don't do it. Oh, there we go. Okay, honestly, if I can get to the boss right now with this,
My mana is gone.
that's insane. Like, the amount of projectiles I'm actually throwing out is completely disgusting. Oh. Come on, come on, come on. Where are we going? Oh no, I don't have it. Did I? I still have it? Oh, I can't die actually right now. Let's go. Okay, I actually just win. Oh. Come on, come on. Fight me.
The stars betray us.
Wait a second. Oh, and it's possessed? Sheesh, okay. Oh, frozen. Not dying though, not dying though. Come on, come on. Believe, believe. There we go. Oh, I got petrified. Come on, let me move, let me move, let me move. Come on, no. Damn. Okay. Random petrified at the end. Okay, I didn't know the petrified stuff would just kind of actually just pop up. That's okay. So the petrified statues aren't just set placed ones, they just kind of pop up and you're screwed. Got it. Oops. Anyway, but yeah, there we go. I probably should have checked my tooltip. My tooltip was probably insane. But the highest I've had is like 20 million. And technically the Wisp are ×6, so that's crazy. And then also returning projectiles don't really go into that tooltip. So I need to get Awakened Vicious in there. So yeah, anyway. But yeah, there it is. So that's that build. It's coming along quite nicely. It's able to do things. Oh, and I still haven't gotten my last ascendancy point, which I need to remedy that. But anyway. Also need to look at this again. Might be able to save some skill points there. And now I definitely have the currency to buy a better one of these instead of just a one divine one. Maybe look at that, or swapping some things around. But yeah, definitely have some ways to go for this build, and I always have Ellie Head of Spectrum that I could go into and try to do something there for single target stuff that if I just want actual ridiculous damage whenever I need it. So yeah, other than that, pretty good. So yeah, definitely a stream on the 3rd, and then definitely a stream on the 4th, 5th, and 6th over the weekend. Probably the 7th as well. Definitely going to be doing a lot of Monster Hunter POE in those days. Other than that, probably a video up over the weekend and a video up sometime before next weekend because, yeah, by the time Thursday and Friday hit, I'm definitely going to be going hard into Monster Hunter on the 3rd and then POE on the 4th. PO2, that is. And then if I get any extra free time or play stuff, I might be doing some other things. And of course, again, I already mentioned that there would be the podcast somewhere there. That would be off stream though. So I'd probably wrap up and then go do that. That happens in a couple of weeks if it happens on that weekend. But anyway, and the video would be up sometime before I went back live again. But yeah, it's playing. Cool. Anyway, stuff and things. Let's go and just wrap it up. Usual spiel. You know what? Let's find somebody to raid to. Doop-a-doo. Who we raid? Anybody on right now? Anybody doing POE 2 things? Okay, well, maybe we're on and ending a little too early. Oops. Here's what it is. But anyway, guys, then I'm just gonna wrap it up. So YouTube, let's just do Discord, Twitter, and I'm working on some ways to get more consistent content on actual Instagram and stuff. And we got a ton of dog pics. I actually should just fulfill that promise, just so that is a thing. But anyway, Discord, Twitter, boom, TikTok and Instagram. Hopefully, it won't be a meme soon. That's my goal this year, not to have Instagram and TikTok be a meme. But anyway, guys, that'll be it for this one. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Peace. Also, I just realized I still didn't put the outro screen over here. I tried to look for it and click, but whoops. But anyway, there it is. Peace.